welcome. I'm Dan McDermott. This is Google Plus Week, the longest running show on Google Plus, and it's great to have you with us. We'll be monitoring your live comments during the program, so please keep them coming, your comments and questions. We promise to look at every one, and we'll talk about most of them. Okay, let's take it right to the panel. Let's see here. Let me find the panel. There's the panel. First, we have Mr. Oh, I got the wrong mouse. I'm breaking everything already. Mr. Allen Firstenberg in New York. Welcome, Allen.
Always great to be here, Dan. Good to see you.
Absolutely. Anthony Klauser in Rochester, New York. Welcome, sir. Tan, rested, and ready. We have Mr. Craig Shipp in Sarasota, Florida from Hangout10.com. Welcome, Craig.
Hello, all.
In the San Francisco Bay Area, Jeff Zayas from ViewOnTheMarket.com.
Yay.
Absolutely. In Greensboro, North Carolina, newcomer tonight, we have Katie Wright. Katie, welcome. Katie's going to keep us ship shape. Is Katie frozen? Katie's frozen.
Looks like it.
So we'll check back with Katie in a bit. In Colorado. M. Monica joins us. I'm going to get it eventually. I need to start taking Ritalin again. In Augusta, Georgia, you were again in the top 10, I think like number 3 golf course in America, right?
Yeah, I actually got my interview for them Tuesday.
Awesome. What, a permanent gig?
Oh, no. But just for the tournament.
Oh, okay, cool.
Nice.
When is it?
The tournament?
The Masters tournament.
Second week in April.
Awesome.
What will you be doing? What will you be doing?
I usually do server. I serve in the VIP area.
And bouncer. In Lincolnshire, Illinois, Michael Ellis. Michael, welcome.
Thank you.
You're learning German.
Yes, I'm learning German and helping others learn German.
See, I picked that up.
Danke.
Ich bin ein. And of course, in Menifee, California, the incomparable bedrock of the program, Pam Azure. Pam, welcome.
Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm doing quite well, thanks. So anyway, let's get to it. We have an exciting first topic, Geek Out Time. And I forgot to start my stopwatch, so I'm going to start it here at the first topic. Okay, so we have exciting improvements in notifications, Alan.
This is just truly thrilling, but you know, we do call ourselves Google Plus Week, so we feel that, you know, once in a while we actually have to talk about Google Plus.
And of course, notification policy is a ratings bonanza, let me tell you.
Yeah.
So tell us how this is going to improve our lives and how you're so excited about this.
This is going to improve our lives the same way every other pot of spaghetti that the Google Plus design team has thrown against the wall to try to convince people that somehow, for some reason, Google Plus actually is like easy to use. What this is a number of people started noticing that that a new window will pop up when you log into Google Plus at some point, basically showing all of your circles and prompting you if you want to turn notifications on for your circles. And you know, if for those of us who have been around for a while, who understand the volume control slider, who understand how notifications for your circles work, we just all kind of looked at it and clicked to dismiss it without thinking about it. But apparently Google must feel that this slider concept is too complicated for users, which it is, or is located in a difficult to understand location, which it is, or just has any number of other broken things about it, which it does, and decided to create this new window, which is complicated, difficult to find, difficult to use, and will solve absolutely no problems. So I see Anthony has been nodding to all of my comments. Anthony, do you have any thoughts on this?
No. I mean, no additional thoughts anyways. I must have seen the big pop-up, but I must have ignored it too, so.
Yeah,
I didn't even see the pop-up, so, you know, and I'm on every day, so.
It's so completely unclear what it's supposed to be about. I saw it and thought, what the heck are they doing? In fact, I've got one up on my screen right now. I guess I could share my screen, Alan, if you'd like.
If you insist.
I'm looking at the link now. I'm guessing it's an attempt to fix what's broken, but it's not working.
So there's my screen with that on it. And I don't understand what they're trying to tell me. It looks like they're telling me about setting the slider to something to get notifications.
Oh, is that? I guess
they're trying to get you to understand how the slider works.
Well, except for the fact that they're not actually showing you a slider.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like replacing the slider with a button.
Yeah.
With a button.
With a button that has a bell on it. I don't understand.
The same button from communities.
Yes. Michael.
Yeah, and see, that's what I was talking about. But see, what I don't understand is some of the communities have the default to on, and some of them have it to off, because I had joined several communities, and I was just getting notifications from these too.
Right, and I think the part of why they're doing it is for exactly that reason. It's the same icon they use in communities. They mutilated the settings for communities, so now they feel they've got to mutilate it for circles as well. That's one. Two, I have this feeling that with the mobile app, they've now enabled a way to turn on notifications on the mobile app separate from the slider. So they're trying to bring the desktop app in line with the mobile app, even though they're doing it in a completely different way. I don't know. I mean, it seems like there's this half-baked idea somewhere in there.
And in the meantime, we're still only going to get like 25% of our notifications, those of us with any kind of following, because there are so many from so many different sources that we never get them all.
And they go away.
But what you can do is turn it to send you an email when you get a notification.
Oh, gosh, no. Oh, don't even get me started on the email thing. No. I already have 9,000 emails, and I don't need any more.
Filters.
But here's the thing, though. The normal users, when they sign up, if they put all their friends and family in friends and family circle, and then they put the notification way up, that would help.
Well, that'll only work, Monica, because there's only 3 members of your family, of your
right.
family.
That's why the normal people aren't here, though.
Actually,
because Facebook has it much more simplified.
While you have that,
you just don't see posted on Facebook.
Unless people pay for.
Yeah, but while you have that, Monica, hang on. While you have that, Monica, we had this comment from George Cozy. You're looking at it the wrong way. The fact that Google Plus is complicated is an intelligent test for the new users.
It's such an intelligence test that 99.9% fail. I mean, what are we saying here?
I know that George is at least slightly kidding when he says that, but I'm sorry, but that's not why I want. I want people to use Google Plus. I want everyone to use Google Plus, and Google is just making it harder with these sorts of things. Anyway, I think we're all in agreement. The new notification settings are absolutely going to be the killer feature of Google Plus in 2013.
Absolute perfection.
Absolute perfection. So let's move on. Let's move on to some other gripping stories this week. One of the things that we've talked about frequently are the amazing number of versions of Android that are out there. And I've been bemoaning for ages now that the 2-year-old version, known as Gingerbread, has had 50% of the Android market. And the latest numbers are finally out. And for once, finally, Gingerbread falls below 50%. They're now at something like 47.3%, which is wonderful to see. In addition to that, Jelly Bean, the latest versions, have over 10% of the Android market share, which is, I think, doubling, or almost doubling, since last month's numbers. So we're really seeing these new versions getting pushed out and pushed up. Ice Cream Sandwich, the version previous to Jelly Bean, now has something like 20-some-odd% of the market. Between the 2 most recent releases, they now have almost 30% of the market share. And finally, the version that was known as Cupcake, which is ancient at this point, has fallen off the charts, which means that nobody uses it anymore. So that's great to see. What do you have to say on this, Michael?
The only reason that they have these good numbers is because of all the devices that they shipped and not that they've upgraded.
It's That's not, I don't think that's entirely true. We know, for example, I don't, because what we're seeing is that the latest version, 4.2, which is which is available only on the most recent Nexus devices, that only has something like 1% of the market. That's not a lot of devices.
Yeah, but how many of those devices are the new Nexus devices?
Well, exactly, and I think that the number that you really need to be looking at to get a grip on what Michael is saying is ice cream sandwiches numbers, which are basically all tablets. I mean, can we agree on that? With the exception of the Nexus, whatever it was at the time.
No, we can't agree on that at all.
A lot more.
The Razer, Droid, basically all the phones about a year and a half ago are ice cream sandwich, all the new phones. So I would say phones that were manufactured a year ago are an ice cream sandwich.
And that's why that only leaves the newer devices that are on Jelly Bean. They've shipped a lot of Nexus 7 since they've been out, and all of them should be, just about all of them should be up to Jelly Bean.
Why is it such a project? This is coming from somebody who's not in the Android environment. Why is it such a issue and such a project to get these phones updated? Why do the carriers not want to do it?
Because they want to sell.
It devours their experience. It cuts off their experience. They want to be different. They don't want to just be another Android phone. They want their own experience. They want their own apps. They want their own brand. They want all these other different things, and they have to have it their way.
So you can't.
But there are some hardware issues as well. I mean, it's not.
Right.
I mean, you got to realize the phones that are running Gingerbread are 2-year-old phones. Most of them can't handle the most recent software. They're either the cheap phones or the phones that were designed 2 years ago, or they're not going to get upgraded.
Okay, so is it the cheaper phones that can't be upgraded, or just older, or is it both?
Both.
It's cheaper. I don't think it's not both because most I'll give you most, but it can be updated with you lose features. Certain.
Well, to put it in perspective, could you take the original iPhone and put the newest version of iOS on it?
No, but you can about 3 models back. I mean, you can. I think the iPhone 4 and the 4S and the 5 can all run the newest operating system. But if you go back to the 3G...
Right, but how old is the iPhone 4?
Yeah, exactly.
But then you can't expect all Apple users
if you're like
upgrade to the newest operating system if only a third of their devices will support it.
It's a selling point for the new devices. So as well. They only have X amount of resources, right, to test these phones for the FTC and all that stuff. So they're going to do it on the most recent devices, not their legacy devices. And if you want to get the greatest, fastest, best thing, they want you to get a new phone.
My HD2 from 2009 can run Jelly Bean. It won't have all of the freaking features, and it won't run just like my Nexus 4 now, but it can run the OS.
How many of you guys get a new phone every 2 years? Whenever your contract's up?
Way before that.
You pay the penalty every time, Michael?
No, I just don't buy it from the company.
Every 2 years, I get a new phone.
But I think most people do that now, and I'm seeing more and more people switch from a feature phone, meaning not a smartphone, basic, you can text and make calls, to either an iOS or an iPhone or a Samsung Galaxy.
You mean like one of these?
Oh dear.
But here's what you do. You take your old phone.
My phone.
You take your old phone.
I can do worse. Believe me.
Yeah, hold on. But people are taking their old phones, putting Groove IP on it or Talkatone, taking their Google number and just using it as a phone, a Wi-Fi phone. That's what a lot of people are doing. So, I mean, that's what I've done.
You really don't have a phone?
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry. I do. I have a phone. I have a Razer Max, right? And then I took my old Incredible and turned it into a Wi-Fi phone using Groove IP or Talkatone with Google Voice. And boom, this is a Wi-Fi phone. I use it as an extra phone.
So I guess the conclusion is the Android phones in general are just kind of like throwaway devices. You buy it, you use it for a year or two, you buy a new one, and you just get the new operating system.
No, I mean, I know that you're coming at that, in an extremely sarcastic and anti.
No.
Well, isn't that the way it is with every carrier?
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that.
My point is, I have this phone. It's the original HTC Evo 4G. It was 2 years old in November.
That's what
I consider myself cutting edge. I mean, I bought it on day one. I consider myself cutting edge technology. I don't feel until recently that I've needed to upgrade my phone. If I wanted to put Jelly Bean by rooting my phone, which my phone is already rooted, I could do that. I've done it. I just didn't like Jelly Bean on my phone, as odd as that might sound.
But
so
Anthony,
what I'm saying is that you're saying that these phones are throwaway devices. This phone is not a throwaway device.
Yeah, but what Dan was suggesting is 2-year cycle, and you're not at the 2 years yet, right?
No, I'm at the 30 months.
Oh, you've had it more than 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay. But, I mean, I think what he was saying and what I would tend to agree with is that most people probably do go ahead and upgrade their phone at that 2-year cycle. And so if you do upgrade it at that 2-year cycle, then you're going to get the latest stuff if that's what you want.
They push it. When you call for a question or something, Craig, they'll say, by the way, your contract's up. We can give you a great deal, because they know you can leave at that point.
Yeah.
So they're going to try to suck you in and get you in, we got the new shiny new whatever, and then you're stuck with them for another 2 years.
And my point is only that people are upgrading out of desire, not out of need, which goes contrary to your suggestion that they're throwaway devices.
But Anthony, you're paying the same amount for the service regardless. If you've got a crappy, outdated phone, you're still paying that premium amount for the service. So you're probably better off having the better hardware that you can take full advantage of that data connection.
I mean, if you can afford the new phone, you're always better off having the new hardware. But again, what I'm saying is this device that is more than 2 years old is not a crappy device by any stretch of the imagination.
You bought a Highline unit. You didn't buy.
Yeah, but I mean, even if I would have bought like a device that was like 6 months old, I mean, that would have gotten me through the 2 years, before I hit my 2-year, upgrade.
Yeah, but there might be features on a new phone like HDMI out or 8 megapixel phone. I mean, they'll push you over the edge, right?
Or higher resolution or whatever. But people are not buying new phones. Well, I mean, everyone's different demographics and whatever. But people are not buying new Android phones because they feel that they need to, and if they do feel that they need to, they probably, don't actually need to. But
then how do you explain the Galaxy Note? People just jumped on that. Boom, right?
Because it's a great device.
Well, I think part of it is you have to remember that for a while Google wasn't really releasing any phone updates. I mean, there was a huge time gap in between when Gingerbread came out and when Ice Cream Sandwich came out. Honeycomb was there, but it wasn't meant for phones at all. So, Google, there was this big gap of nothingness. I think now that Google started getting on this more rapid release cycle, now that Google has started giving the phone manufacturers better tools to encourage them to upgrade the operating system, and now that kind of Google is pushing them along with more and better Nexus devices, and you've got Motorola there that's kind of pushing them along as well, hopefully, maybe we're going to start seeing some changes. I mean, I think that's really kind of where all of the problems have been.
I think part of the thing is that the difference between Android 2.2 and Android 2.3 as far as stability goes is massive. I don't think that any previous version of Android was as stable as 2.3 is.
Well, that's true.
And that the jump from Gingerbread to
You're talking about Keyline Pi, the new one?
I think we're going to start seeing major new releases at I/O every year, and we're going to possibly see exactly what we saw this year, either a version bump with no name bump coming in line for the November phone releases.
So a major one once a year and a bump mid-year.
or 2.
But then you have all the people who use their phones until they fall apart. You know, they don't upgrade every 2 years. They upgrade maybe every 6 or 8 years.
Well, I think they're upgrade. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
As the phones get better, like I've always upgraded every year with the iOS phones, with the iPhone. But this time I skipped. I'm still on the 4S. I didn't get the 5 because my 4S is a pretty daggone good phone. And so if I wait and get the next one, and let's say it's a lot better than my 4S and then the 5, then I may keep that phone for 3 or 4 years. They may have gotten to the point where they're so daggone good that maybe you wait until the battery's shot in the daggone thing before you replace it.
Yeah, but a lot of the stuff is the OTAs on, say, Verizon carrier, just comes across and then it reboots your phone. So, a lot of that just comes across.
Literally, when my last phone fell apart, like the 2 parts were not one anymore.
Did it still work after it fell apart?
No, it didn't. That's why I had to buy a new phone.
But getting back to what Alan said, I think the whole idea is that Google wants to just have a regimental release, maybe once a year, coming out with a new operating system, and then just kind of just bang it out, do it that way. It makes more sense, and just do the incremental ones when there's a bug fix.
Okay, so it sounds like once again we are all in agreement. Speaking of phones, let's move. We had some interesting news from on the Linux front. Michael, do you want to talk us through some of this?
Yeah, over the Christmas break and the New Year break, Ubuntu put out a phone. Well, put out an OS. Based off the same drivers of Android that Android uses, and they plan to ship some actual devices in 2014, but you will be able to see the OS in action at CES. And I expect a lot of videos to be coming out about that. They have their own separate app ecosystem, and they have their own user interface that doesn't look too much like anything else that's on the market, so it's interesting to have another player in the OS war.
Now, let me get your take on it. Do you really think this is going to be a major player?
No.
Why not?
I personally don't.
Now, you're a Linux guy.
I use Linux, yeah.
So why don't you think this is going to be a big player?
From what I've seen, it seems to be something that's nicely done. I hear it's fluid. You don't really know yet, but I don't see a lot of hard customization like I'm used to. Yes, you can customize from what I've seen, certain app and certain app screens and colors and background, stuff like that, but I don't have full control over it. It seems to be more polished than feature rich, and I prefer Android for that reason.
That's actually kind of funny, considering that a lot of people are praising this for being a real open source phone operating system.
The problem is that you have not Android. You have Linux fanboys, and Linux fanboys are worse than Microsoft fanboys, and they're worse than Apple fanboys. And I should say Windows fanboys instead of Microsoft fanboys, because I don't think they're all Microsoft fanboys. But
there are. I know them.
Well,
I know a few.
Yeah, there are. But Linux fanboys, in my opinion, are worse than Windows fanboys and Apple fanboys. And so, you just have these type of people that are, I don't know, what does Linux have?
Like every
Careful, guys, you're going to get the tech and coffee people in here.
Yeah, 10% of the, you got to remember that every web server runs
I was having
Linux,
a conversation on a post with someone, and he kept on telling me how, Linux is on all these computers. And yes, Linux dominates computers when you're talking about server-grade, computers and data centers and computers that people are not actually using, or maybe computers that programmers are using. But when you get into the area where you're talking about consumers, Windows has what, 90-85% of the market, or a higher percentage.
But Anthony, isn't Android based on Linux?
Yeah.
But that's not the point.
That is the point.
No, that is not the point. The point is that if you're using Android and you're just an everyday cell phone user, you have absolutely positively no idea that it is using Linux. In the same way that if you're using OS X, you don't know that it's based on Unix. So it doesn't matter. But this isn't even my point of why Ubuntu's not going to be successful. My point on...
Okay, Anthony, keep going. Come on.
The reason I think Ubuntu will not be successful is the same reason that I think that BlackBerry is having a very hard time, and other, operating system companies are having a very hard time, is that they're not going to have the hardware support. Apple didn't need the hardware support when they first launched because they were new and they were offering something radically different than what everyone else was using at the time. Android was successful because they got large partners like HTC and Motorola and some Samsung to jump on board from day one. Who is Ubuntu going to get to jump on day one? And I don't think, if they don't have the big, powerful OEMs to push the hardware, I don't think that they can push the operating system.
Anthony, you know who they're going to get to jump on board? They're going to get the companies who don't like being under Google's thumb. We already saw, for example...
Or Apple's thumb.
Well, nobody cares about being under Apple's thumb because Apple makes their own hardware. But we saw, for example, HTC, remember, a couple of months ago. They were going to partner up with somebody in China, release a new phone using Chinese operating... using this Chinese modified version of Android, and Google said, Here's now HTC's opportunity to say, you know what, Google, to you.
So the question is why do people feel that Ubuntu can be successful where Microsoft has been extremely unsuccessful?
They can't. And let me tell you why. One, Android was successful because the hardware people jumped on that because they wanted something to combat the iPhone. And they saw Android as a way to do that. Now, Ubuntu, I think they're too late in the game. It seems like everyone is getting an overload of all these different OSs now. Talk about fragmentation. Now we got Android, BlackBerry. They're coming out with their new OS. And now Ubuntu's coming out with their new OS. And now we still got Android.
What happens if Amazon phone comes out with Ubuntu operating system, right? Amazon has built their own hardware.
Don't do that one.
No, I'm just saying. They can partner with whoever they want, and I don't think personally, I don't think Ubuntu is going to be a big success because there's not going to have the apps developed on it like an existing operating system.
Well, but here's the thing, Jeff. One of the things that Ubuntu says they're going to have going for it is you're not, the apps that you develop for it are going to be HTML5 apps.
Yep.
Just like Windows says the apps you're developing for it are HTML5 apps. So,
where are those apps?
It's, inherently easy for all of those web developers out there.
Yeah, but where are all the Windows Phone apps?
Oh, details.
And that was my other point was, unless you can get the developers, which is the problem, in my opinion, that Linux has, is that they don't have people creating the programs that consumers want to use, unless you have the apps, and, history speaks for itself. If you don't have the apps, like the BlackBerry and the WebOSs, then you're not going to be successful. You have a short amount of time where you can try and get those developers.
And
you need to get them relatively quickly.
Android is pretty successful, and their apps are pretty marginal. So
What?
No.
No. Next. What was the comment? What was the comment?
He's full of it. He's full of it.
We've got a comment from Bruce, who's a frequent panelist who obviously couldn't get in this evening. Asking, would not the same thinking that drives those of us to Android, wasn't he an OS X person, also be a potential draw to Ubuntu phone if they offer new and/or compelling features?
And I don't see anything compelling right now. I really don't. I see they have an interesting UI in the way you manipulate the screens, but I don't see enough customizations on those screens that you can make that's compelling.
And I think what would probably drive a lot of people... What will get people into Ubuntu is the ability to just get down into the nitty-gritty of it. And I don't think there's a single phone manufacturer that wants you to get down into the nitty-gritty of their phone. And there certainly isn't a carrier that wants you to get into the nitty-gritty of your phone.
So I would love to see Ubuntu be successful, grab 10 or 15% of the market. I don't want to use Ubuntu. I want to use Android because I'm happy with Android, and I've been using Android for a long time, so I'm used to it and whatever. But I would love to see another competitor, and I don't really even care who the competitor is, but I would love to see another competitor get 10 to 15% of the market share and create competition for iOS and Android. And Windows Phone does not seem to be that competition.
Okay, so it sounds like we're all in agreement. Google is probably going to be quaking in their boots over this, and we all better prepare for our new Linux overlords. So moving on to the next topic we have this evening, we had an interview by, oh boy, I should have practiced this name first, Babak Parviz, who is the head of the Google Glass project at Google X Labs. And he did an interview this week, and it was a kind of interesting interview. It actually told us a little bit more than we knew before, although, to be honest, not all that much. But it was an interesting interview nonetheless, and kind of gave a little bit of the insight that he and his team had in just kind of trying to take everything about Google Glass and do something new and different and revolutionary with it, and to experiment. I mean, one of the things they were asking is, well, have you settled on the API? Have you settled on how it's going to look, how it works? And he kind of said, well, no, we haven't. We're still experimenting, and we're still producing new versions, and we're still trying them all out. Did anybody else read the interview, or was I the only one deeply interested in this?
I did not read the interview, but yesterday I was in San Francisco on Noe Valley area on 24th Street, and I saw a person with Google Glasses on the street, and I stopped and talked to them, and they were on the development team. And it sounds like all the people on the development teams are actually wearing these glasses and trying them out. So they're not just Sergey wearing them; it's the whole team has them, and they're using them. So that's very interesting that they're kind of out in the public. And more people are having them.
And actually, one of the interesting things that I saw, just around Christmas time, was that a lot more Googlers were getting Glass. So, for example, Natalie, who's the CM for Google Plus, is now sporting Google Glass. And some of the people inside the Niantic project are now sporting Google Glass. So we're seeing a lot of people outside of the Glass project itself are getting on board and trying it out internally.
Jeff, can you tell us what he said and what they look like in person?
Well, it was a woman, and she was kind of closed mouth about it, but it was telling to me that she had them on, and we had a brief conversation, and she said that the team is wearing them and that they're out using them daily. So just to see someone just in real life wearing them, walking down the street.
What did they look like?
Hers were kind of bluish, and they looked like the ones that Sergey was wearing, except hers were blue, and it was just attached to her glasses. And it was.
Did they look like to you like they were a well-made final production unit?
It looked final production, definitely.
Let me ask you, Jeff. How public was it? Was she like in a?
Walking down the street, getting coffee out of Martha's Coffee Shop on 24th Street.
Was everyone staring? I mean, everyone. I'm sure.
I'm the only one that seemed to notice that she wore them. So I went up to her.
So it wasn't like Justin Bieber in the mall or something.
Yeah, I'm like, can I have your autograph, please? No, but it was very, it was very kind of they're there, but they're not like obtrusive, and it was interesting. I just thought it was very interesting that they was out in public.
Jeff, you said that she had them in front of her glasses. Were they actually glasses with frames in them, or was it just the frame and then something supported with the glass unit hanging onto a frame without lenses.
To me, it looked like they were just like the small little reading glasses, and it was attached to it. So I don't know if they were prescription glasses, if they were just clear through glasses, but it was that little quartz, you know.
They did address that, right, Alan? Where, I mean, you will be able to, if you have prescription glasses, you'll still be able to have them.
We don't know. They haven't told us anything yet.
Google's being evasive?
Yeah, shocking. There was a picture that I saw of somebody saying, look, here's proof that you can get Google Glass for prescription glasses. But I couldn't tell from the picture that that's actually what we saw.
Does Sergey wear glasses?
I don't know.
Jeff, do you think you could talk her into maybe going with you to a bar and, you know, accidentally leaving them?
We definitely went our ways after about 45 seconds, so it wasn't a big conversation. But it was, to me, it was very interesting. It was very interesting to see that. What?
Who was this?
It was a Google development team person on 24th Street in San Francisco walking down the street with a cup of coffee coming on Martha's Coffee Shop. I stopped her. I said, "Hey, are those Google glasses?" She said, "Yes."
Well, that's very specific.
Yeah, everyone on the team is wearing them. We're trying them out, and that was basically our conversation. But they were cool, and
Pixar, it didn't happen. Pixar, it didn't happen. Did you get a picture?
Pixar GTFO, man.
I didn't, you know, I was going to take the picture, but, you know, I'm going like, you know, this is not like a rock star.
That would have been like, you know, the B section of a tech blog.
Yeah, perhaps.
I think it wouldn't be too hard to get at least one of these developers to take these glasses to a bar and accidentally leave them at the bar.
It wouldn't be an accident. I got to tell you, though, at I.O., whenever somebody with a pair of glass was walking around, people were stopping and taking pictures of them. It was definitely quite a sight.
She probably took Jeff's picture.
We had a comment from Travis on the last subject, but I think it's actually relevant in this one as well. Apps are the key. That's why Google Chromebooks are still sitting on the shelf.
I disagree.
No, I think it's a valid point.
I agree, apps are the key, but that's not the reason Google Chromebooks are sitting on the shelf.
Well, I don't know about that, but tying it into this one, which is where I was trying to go, one of the things that they did say in the interview was he kind of hinted that the apps were going to be very cloud-based and have a cloud-based API interface to it, which got a lot of people going, oh, great, what does that mean? Why isn't it being tethered to an Android phone? Why isn't it doing this? Why isn't it doing that? But they didn't really give enough details for anyone to know what was going on, just to be incredibly excited about the fact that they finally said something about these things.
I think that it would be a major mistake if they did not use Android. Well, I guess they could use HTML5, but that creates its own issues, as we've seen. Because it's tough to get, like we've said previously, it's tough to get developers to develop for new platforms.
Travis Mitchell's comment's pretty funny.
I think pretty soon we're going to see some angry developers when they get this, you know, device that they're going to spend $1,500 on. If that would be what they wanted, and I see some angry people.
What is the final price going to be, or do we have any?
There is no such thing.
Okay.
We don't know. We don't. I mean, you know,
the developer price is high, right? It's like
$1,500.
$1,500 for the 2,000 or so people who were able to sign up at I/O.
Google is probably going to do what a lot of others before them have done. They're going to come out with a halfway decent product that's either going to be overpriced or kludgy or both. And then a year later, Apple's going to come out with a great product that does everything better for twice the price.
Really?
Wait a minute.
Would that be
Apple?
I think you have this backwards. Apple is going to come out with an overpriced product, and
it's going to come out with something that's twice as much again.
Craig, you could literally. There's a lot of truth in that. There was an Onion story, I think it was Onion, where they said there's Apple selling a brick with the Apple logo on it, and Craig will be the first in line. And then there was a picture. There's another one. Apple trying to get you to buy a second iPhone for your other hand.
Hey, but it'll be a beautiful brick.
It'll be the most epic, beautiful design.
It'll be a.
But no, my
able to
withstand
withstand suicide nets.
My point is there are rumors that Apple is working on wearable computer items. Whether
I don't
it's going
think
to be a
they're going
watch
to be
or what it's going to be.
I don't think they're going to be as good as you think because one, Apple's been off their game lately. They've been knocked off their horse, and I think they're in an era now where it will not be as revolutionary as it has been.
If they don't,
it's a natural progression because you've got cameras on, you've got wearable cameras, right, Craig? The skateboard kids use them, and the bike, the
GoPros. The GoPro.
Yeah, exactly.
GoPro Hero.
Yeah. And you've also got cameras now that there's the new Android camera by by Samsung, right?
All I'm saying,
this is at its simplest level. This is a wearable camera that has connectivity and an operating system. It's computerized at its basic level, and that's a natural progression. You're going to see the GoPro become that way.
Interacting with your phone is what it really is.
Yeah, it's advanced. It's Star Trek-y.
No.
It's going to be Google Now on your eye.
No, yes.
Yes,
that's what it is. Google Now on your eye.
Exactly.
Well, but here's the thing, though. If they can't figure out how to get Google Plus to work to tie all these things together, it's not going to work. So I hope they fix Google Plus and it ties all these things together, and then Google Glass, everybody gets Google Glass, and they dominate the market. That would be really cool. But like I pointed out before, they seem to have a fundamental issue with getting people to even figure out Plus. So how are they going to get everybody to wear this thing on their eye and get them to figure that out?
They have to start doing things right.
Why?
That's what they should.
And they've made a buttload of money.
Simplicity.
Alan, the only place they're making money is in search. That's it. They're not making money off any of this other stuff.
No, they're making money in advertising.
That's what I mean. The search-based advertising.
That's not search.
Well, think about this. Their strongest products are the most simple, and the most complex are not. Are the ones where they fall down.
Gmail is simple?
Gmail is one of the most... You can use Gmail simply.
But we don't pay attention to them.
Well, you can
I use Gmail simply. Trash inbox. Simply. That's it.
Trash and inbox. You can use it more complex.
Reply, send. Forward.
Yeah.
The only place they make money is on their search engine, and the ads they display there, and that's it. They're a one-trick pony.
So why are you here, Craig? We always keep wondering.
You always get me.
Because it's entertaining. I'm trying to learn something.
Oh, please.
Craig's like the Eeyore of the show.
There's no Android products.
He's the Eeyore.
Trash.
Did anyone see the post about the iPads are lost 7% market share? That they're down to 78% of the market now.
78% of the market.
Quaking.
Oh my God! The stock's going to tank.
It's starting the slippery slope slide down.
I think as much as I love my Nexus 7, and I'm sure the Nexus 10 is even better and bigger, I would think that the Kindle HD and the Kindle, the new Kindle Fire are probably more of a.
So Alan, to answer your question, the reason that I'm here is I predicted Apple's downfall several months ago on this show, and then the stock crashed. So it's because I know the future. That's why I'm here.
Okay,
the stock did not crash. Stock opened up in 2012 at 400, closed at 500. It did not crash. It went up 25%.
But I predicted several months ago the crash that happened thereafter, and it's going to get worse for Apple.
Lottery numbers, or it didn't happen. Anyway, we've got 3 comments before we move on. We have this one from Corey. Not sure if Apple can pull it off without good old Steve. And I think that's a pretty valid point. Steve is the one who had vision, who was really the kind of steering thing. Everyone else is just kind of wandering along blindly. John comments that if Apple does come out with glasses, you probably won't be able to see out of them. I would correct that. I think you will be able to see out of them, except for the first week of every year, at which point they'll go dark and you'll be unable to reverse that. But Apple assures you that You're just using it wrong, and at the end of the week, you'll be able to see out of them fine with no problems whatsoever. Don't worry about it.
You'll be getting those directions right off those glasses.
Right from Siri.
And
turn left now.
And speaking of Siri, we had David suggesting that he would love to see the heads-up display iteration of something like Siri and Apple Maps. I'm not sure I'd want to see the heads-up display of Apple Maps, but I think one of the things that's actually one of the things that I think people don't quite get yet about Glass is that it's not really a heads-up display. It's this thing that's going to be very, just barely outside your peripheral vision. That's going to work a little bit differently than how I think a lot of people are expecting it to look. So that's one of the things they really need to start showing and illustrating and making sure that people get. Anyway, any final comments on this interview on Glass before we move on to our next topic? Anyone?
Well, what about what Mark's saying here? Did we hit that yet? It's a Google Plus comment, not a YouTube. He's saying subscribe.
Oh, he's back in the notifications.
Yeah, he said subscribing to Circles. Did you add the Google Plus post?
Yes.
Subscribing to Circles with notifications.
Oh, yes.
He says that's been out since August, and then he has on his Varante.org.
Right. We discussed this already. We pointed out that no, it isn't anything new. Just the way they're now trying to present it to people is
trying to
vaguely
raise
confusing,
awareness.
vaguely new, vaguely something. It's more spaghetti against the wall.
They're trying a quick fix for a very, very large problem.
Okay. All right. So let's move at 44. Even. It was in the news. Eric Schmidt and former Governor Richardson, first name, anybody know? I forget what state he was. He was a Clinton cabinet member. And
Mark Richardson?
Is it Mark Richardson?
Is it Mark? I don't remember.
I forget. And anyway, they're going to North Korea. And I think that they were Richardson was contacted by the family of an American who's being detained there.
Bill Richardson.
Bill Richardson.
Oh.
Richardson was contacted by the member of a family who's being held there. And so he decided to go, and he has a lot of experience with North Korea. And like 15 years of experience, and he I think has gone there before and gotten people out, and that's I'm guessing what the purpose is here. And then he invited Eric Schmidt. The State Department says, and I'll throw it to Alan. The State Department said publicly that they didn't think that it was helpful to do so at this time. My guess is Richardson definitely would have called his friend Hillary Clinton before he set this up. You can't just go to North Korea; you have to get permission. I'm guessing there's some public saber rattling. Because they have to, the administration, because we have an embargo, and we are trying to get other countries to enforce the embargo against North Korea on military, that sort of thing. And so we can't be publicly, it would be bad form for us to publicly encourage Americans to go there on humanitarian missions or whatever, while at the same time telling other countries you can't do things. So I think it's kind of a public versus what's really going on private. That's, from circling the tarmac. I have no idea for sure, but I would guess that. Alan?
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think that basically this is the federal government officially distancing themselves from this project because, they have to do that politically. But privately, I'm sure they're passing along to Richardson and to Schmidt, what they'd like their agenda to be and what they're hoping they mention while they're there.
What to get pictures of, what to check out,
Well, no.
Information to gather. But and the reason, last thing I'll say, and I'll throw it to you guys, is the reason Eric Schmidt's going is Eric Schmidt's always been interested in foreign policy, just as an interest, and he's friends with Bill Richardson. So he said, you want to go along. And so that's how Google got into this. So what do you guys think?
No, that's interesting. I didn't know that. In fact, I've been hearing a lot of people speculating, trying to figure out why Schmidt was going. The speculation that I had heard was that the current administration in North Korea, the Kim, I can't remember which Kim it is, has made statements recently talking about trying to open North Korea up some more, trying to make it modern, trying to tap into the economic development that all of the surrounding countries have had. And there was some talk about, well, hey, is he going to be talking to Schmidt? Is he going to try to get Google into North Korea?
Secretly, what I've heard from inside is that they're going to actually have a little ceremony to celebrate the fact that 16 of the 20 cell phones in North Korea are Android. So he's going there. They're going to sort of have a little cake or something.
But what version of the operating system?
Froyo.
From before Google bought it.
The free version.
So does anyone else on the panel have any thoughts about this trip?
I hope they don't try and wear glass on the trip. I've had a journalist friend who's gone over there, and it's not as scary as Iran, but you shouldn't get in trouble over there.
Can you give us like a minute or two on that real quick, Monica, on what her observations or what was interesting? I mean, I think the place is fascinating. It's like it's the most desolate place in the world, kind of, right? Do you remember any interesting stories or something she told you?
Yeah, I saw the pictures, but I don't remember what was published in what magazine afterward, so I don't remember what I saw. Technically, what I saw. It's a scary place. It's weird.
It's a cult. It's a cult of personality. It's crazy.
It's a cult.
It's I don't know how you could describe it. It's a unique place. It makes Cuba look modern. Okay, are we good on that, I guess, Alan?
Yeah, I think so. So moving north from North Korea, we hit China. And there's been some news, sort of, about Google and China recently. You may remember a number of months ago, Google had started popping up messages that when people would type in search terms that Google knew or suspected would cause the person who was doing the search problems, they were popping up a window saying, hey, you may not want to do that because it could get you in trouble, or it could cause problems with your search, or it could be blocked. And we're not doing this, it's your government who's doing this. Apparently, those messages have silently vanished. And the help message, the help documentation about this feature has suddenly vanished. And Google hasn't made any public statements about it. They didn't say that they had reached an agreement with the Chinese government. They didn't say anything, just the feature suddenly vanished. And a lot of the China watch groups are criticizing Google for kind of, they praised them when they put this feature in, and now they're criticizing them for taking it out without any word. But, it's maybe a case where China was putting more and more pressure on Google to not just follow the letter of the law, but follow the spirit of what they wanted them to do, and make them remove this under veiled threats of, hey, maybe we'll just cut off all access to Google completely. Any thoughts on this one? Michael?
Alan, I'm confused that Google was offering up a message that warned the Chinese user that he was doing a search that might get him in trouble.
Yes.
Is that correct? And
That's
now
correct.
Google is no longer providing the warning the search still can occur, and the person can now get in trouble?
Yes.
That's correct.
Why are people angry? Or why shouldn't people angry? Why shouldn't people be upset with Google over that?
I'm not saying they shouldn't be upset with Google over that. What I'm saying though is that the Chinese government was basically saying, "Hey, wait a minute, you're censoring our censor, and that's not allowed."
Oh, I get it. Oh, okay. Now I get the meaning of it. Okay. Yeah. So Chinese government would be interested in knowing who might do a subversive search.
Yes.
Yes.
And Google was helping prevent those people from getting caught.
Correct.
Yes.
Well, not just getting caught, but preventing them from getting in trouble. I mean, it was preventing.
Essentially, in China, that's the same thing.
Well, no, it's preventing them from even trying to do something.
Yeah, before they allowed the search to go through, that message would pop up.
It's
Are you
censorship.
sure you want to do this? Yeah.
Censorship.
Okay, so then the watch groups are right to be upset.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
No,
the first I've heard of this story. I didn't know about this until tonight.
Do no harm, right?
Yeah,
it's
do
don't
no
be
harm,
evil.
but be careful not to
do no evil. Exactly. Sorry.
At the same time, you've got to. I mean, I don't know the details of this. To be honest, I was so busy this week, I didn't read the article. But I will say that you do have to obey the local laws in the same way that the Islam video that I thought they should have just removed. Even though I'm a First Amendment guy, I'm a newspaper publisher, right? So I'm for the First Amendment and freedom of speech. People were getting killed over that stupid video. So I was like, just take the damn thing down, you know. They would take down something, you know, a snuff film. I mean, there's all sorts of videos they take down. And this, but I you know, you got to obey the law. You can't have, you know, things that are might offend a Muslim. You might take down there, but you wouldn't here. So you got to obey the law or leave the country, right?
My take on this is Google did a really good thing by finding a nice workaround. You know, they found a way that they could obey the letter of what China was saying regarding the firewall, but at the same time kind of raise awareness of people, you know, hey, your government is censoring you. You need to understand this. Not that, you know, most Chinese knew this already, but so Google took a clever engineering-like approach to the problem. And the Chinese government finally got around to saying, look, if you keep doing this, we're going to take a nice engineering solution to the problem too and pull your plug. So what are you going to do? I mean, that's...
What would you have done? Exited the country or taken that little thing down? I mean,
I don't know,
that's the choice.
To be honest. What I'm hoping that Google will do is, this is, you know, we've seen this battle go back and forth before. This is China, you know, this is the Chinese government's return salvo, and hopefully in a couple of weeks or a couple of months, Google's going to come back with yet another clever workaround to the problem. Yeah, that's what Google does in China.
Does Apple have these same issues?
But Google has a fiduciary responsibility to be in China for their profitability. So they have to be in China. So they have to figure this out for their stockholders. They can't just say, we're going to take the high road and get the heck out of China. It's too big of a market, right?
That may not be completely true, though, Jeff, because they also will have a large segment of their San Francisco-based shareholders who will feel that they have an obligation to be good corporate citizens of the world and not participate. It's like the South African argument for apartheid, IBM being in South Africa. They should leave because apartheid is evil, or they should stay because they're a positive influence in that country. The exact same arguments apply in China.
Question for you guys. Do you think that
hang on a second. Michael, go ahead.
I just made a point that it's primarily about money, and it's about money.
Bingo, bango.
If they had the same number of employees in China that Apple did through Foxconn, do you think they'd have the same issues?
Possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's all about money, I mean...
All about money.
It's all about the money of whose, and it depends on whose pockets that money is going into.
And right now, it profits U.S. for them to be there.
Yeah, but my point is, though, that it's not just about money, and there's plenty of...
Yeah, it is. No, it is.
Agree.
It is.
I don't agree. I mean, that whole... You can't make...
Why do they outsource what they do?
You know, China has their own search. They have Baidu.
Yeah, but it's not just it's about selling phones. It's about everything. You know, it's about
the business reason why Google wants to be there for all the profit that represents. But lots of businesses wanted to be in South Africa, and lots of businesses were pressured by the world community and their shareholders to pull out of that market.
And they're not being pressured like that in China because only U.S. has that thing. So they're benefiting. No one else complains. Why not? That's the same reason they outsource their money. Taxes, get more money. Why not?
China owns our debt, so we're not going to be pressuring China.
In the end, I think you have, you know, when in Rome, you have to do as the Romans do, and we cannot, as we've seen in Afghanistan and in Iraq, even with all of our guns, we cannot export Western-style democracy to some of these countries. So they're going to have to sort of, you know, do their own thing, and we can choose to be there or not. If we're there, we have to play by their rules. It sucks.
But we also have an obligation, Dan, to support the innate desire for freedom among human beings. That's
for Americans.
That's not just an American thing. That's innate for all.
Of course, Michael, but when I mean, we don't know what happened. I assume someone from the Chinese government said, take this down, or we're going to block your whole sites. And Google was faced with that choice. There was no other choice. They can take it down, or they can shut their sites down.
They could be shut down in the country.
What do? Given those two options?
I'm only making the case, and I think it's a valid one, that it's not just about money. It's way more complicated than that.
Of course, yeah. Google's, I mean, does a lot of humanitarian stuff. They give to a lot of charities.
I think part of it is that you can put it under it's all about money, but you have to realize that part of the it's all about money is the perception and the attitude and how people react to what Google does in China. So, for example, as Michael was saying, as Mike Ellis was saying, if you've got a bunch of stockholders who very firmly believe in something, they can cause Google financial problems if they don't do something proactive in China. That, yes, it's money, and yes, it's a bottom line, but there are a lot of inputs into that bottom line.
But guess what?
But they're way better off. They're way better off having a somewhat censored version of Google and YouTube or whatever than to have it completely cut off. Even with some censorship for that, some of the things, that some of our ideals will get through, and the younger generation, is going to be affected by that. And we know, we all have, I assume most of you have communicated with people in China who are using VPNs or whatever to post, and they don't post a lot, and their English is unusual. But I've spoken to, I've been in a hangout with a guy in straight red China, and talking about Foxconn and stuff. And his English was good. He was slow in communicating, but it was fascinating. So I think having access, even if it's somewhat limited, is far superior than being cut off. Then you're North Korea.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely.
See there, Alan, we are all in agreement.
The government also, though, in China, one thing you should know, though, is they will pay ordinary citizens for any information that they can obtain, including Hangout information. So sometimes you will see people in China join a Hangout, turn off their camera, just like literally join the Hangout for a couple hours, and they are literally gathering the data from the Hangout so they can turn it over to receive a small monetary amount. And it took me a long time to figure this out, but that's what they're doing with the Hangout data.
Monica, are they collecting data about you and me in a Hangout, or about other Chinese people?
They're just getting whatever they can get. Apparently they get a small amount for anything they can get.
But are they? So this is an individual person, just a Joe Chen in China, who's collecting. Is he recording what happens on the Hangout?
I think it's any type of any data.
Or is he sitting here with a notepad writing out kanji script?
I don't know whether it's a notepad or not. Like I said, the majority of them turn off their camera while they're doing it.
And kanji is Japanese.
Oh, excuse me, I got it wrong. Thank you, Pam.
Boy, that's sensitive. Yeah, I mean,
it's not sensitive. It took me a couple months because then eventually one of them told me.
Well, in any country that's a totalitarian dictatorship, even though China is run by a committee, and every 10 years they change their rulers because after Mao, the party did not want another cult of personality, another lifelong dictator, and so they decided they would have they have a president, a premier, and every 10 years they switch them, and it's sort of announced ahead of time, and there's it's sort of like a coronation. They have a meeting. They just did it, so it's not like a Saddam Hussein or Kim Jong-un type thing. It's a de facto monarchy, but really I don't think they have absolute power the way Saddam Hussein would. I think it's more like a prime minister, or somewhere between a prime minister and a pope, where they can be removed, but the pope's really hard to remove, and the prime minister's not quite so hard. But I don't know. It's a fascinating form of government, which is probably beyond the scope of our program. You want to do the FTC?
A little far afield.
Yeah, let's move on to the big Google news of the week.
Go ahead, Alan, and then and Michael and Anthony, and then I'll tell you why you guys are all wrong.
Okay. We'll take the challenge. The big news this week was that the FTC has formally voted and announced that it is dropping its investigation, its antitrust investigation against Google. And in return, Google has signed a number of letters basically saying that really they're going to fly right this time. We're going to be nice, honest. We won't do anything bad. We're sorry if we did. And FTC says, okay, good, very good for you. Now, be good boys. And Microsoft is jumping up in the background saying, hey, wait a minute, but that's not fair. So that's basically the FTC news from this week. I see Monica is laughing about this already, but this is a very, very serious matter.
No, it was great. There was a great article on Slate about it. I posted it on my profile. I liked their analysis. Yeah. No, I was laughing at your analysis.
I think that describes it fairly well. Is basically Google promises to do what they promised before. FTC finally wises up.
Use the word.
I think the best line from the FTC announcement basically boiled down to, we're not in the business of shutting down competitors. We're in the business of making sure there's competition. And apparently they looked into this and said, hey, there's still competition, so quit bugging us.
Exactly.
Now, there's been some suggestion that the FTC was going to hit Google extremely hard, but then a few members of Congress tapped them on the shoulder and said, basically, we feel that you're going on a witch hunt, and if you continue the witch hunt, Congress might have to look into how much power and authority you have over these companies.
Which you can translate to what your budget will be next year during the fiscal cliff cuts. So the FTC might have gotten cut more severely than other agencies.
Exactly.
Couldn't happen to a nicer bunch of folks.
No kidding.
I mean, from my perspective, it actually sounded a bit more severe than just simple, severe budget cuts. To the extent of actually taking away, like, specific abilities that the FTC has.
Right.
Which they've threatened the FCC with previously in regards to net neutrality, telling the FCC if, you came down hard on certain cell phone carriers that they would, remove entire pieces of their authority. So my opinion is that the FTC was going to come down very hard on Microsoft, on Google, on behalf of Microsoft, and Congress said, you can do that, but the consequences will be severe.
Yeah.
That's true, but I think here's my view. Craig Shipp has a fantastic website. He has a number of them, but his flagship is Frederick.com in Frederick, Maryland. By far the #1 website in Frederick, Maryland. I have Warren County Report. That's my flagship newspaper. It is by far the dominant newspaper in Warren County. There's 4 newspapers sold in Warren County: the Washington Post, the Winchester Star, the Northern Virginia Daily, and the Warren Sentinel. All are old. The combined circulation of all 4 of those is less than half of our circulation. We are #1 by far. And if I want to sell a car, or if I started a restaurant, for example, then I absolutely would put an ad in my paper for free. If Craig Shipp wanted to promote Hangout 10, you better believe it's going to be very prominent on Frederick.com. Walmart has great value brand. I'm getting an echo from Michael, I think. Just turn your mic down a little bit, Michael, or whatever. But here's the thing. Walmart can put great value brand products right on their eye-level shelves. Target, Market, Pantry products. Joe Boxer is a Kmart house brand. Sears and Craftsman. What is the point of building a destination that's popular if you cannot use it to promote your other products?
No, Dan.
None of those are monopoly. My paper, his website, Walmart, and Google are not monopolies. Nor is YouTube.
Though, Dan, here's the question, though. Okay, what if the Washington Post took one of your stories and published it without giving you any credit?
Elaborate.
That's exactly one of the things that Google was accused of doing. Is they were accused of going to some of their competitors in a vertical market, such as Yelp.
Oh, you're talking about the reviews and putting excerpts and then...
Right. That was one of the things they were accused about. That's one of the things that in one of the letters, Google has agreed that they won't do again. Which is basically Google saying, hey, yeah, we might have messed up in the past, but honest, we'll be good next time.
That's minor, and we talked about the silos. Pam brought that up, and we agree that's an excellent analogy. Google's big. Like 2 shows ago, we had a problem with the go.gl URL shortener, where they basically declared 2 links were spam, one to the audio version of this and one to Gerwin's comment tracker. It was a goof, an algorithm error, but I reported it right away. Dory, who plus mentioned a couple people on the team or whatever, and I don't think they've done anything about it. Nobody's that I know of. So there are silos, and sometimes even a Googler can't even, when there is a legitimate issue, they can't tell another one. So the thing with the Yelp thing, I don't know. I mean, that's kind of a minor thing. The only thing
Dan, it's not a minor thing. It's basically Google trying to gut Yelp.
Yep.
Because they've got a competing product. It's Google basically stealing all of Yelp's data, sticking it into Google Local.
You couldn't link back to it?
No, there was no link. There was no link back to it. There was no credit. There was no link.
That's
they stole the data outright. They put it in their own product, and they tried to use it to kill Yelp in favor of Google Local.
That's probably some disgruntled ex-Google employees who hacked in and did that.
Yeah, okay.
No, maybe they got their hands caught in the cookie jar there. But I'm just on the larger point. The best thing I saw on this, I forget who wrote it. I posted to it, and it actually got a lot of clicks. Microsoft is this once great giant, one of the premier companies in the world, has become a sniffling, pathetic, whiny rodent, setting up phony front companies.
Could you tell us how you really feel, Dan?
Pathetic, disgusting, dishonest, disingenuous at best.
I think you want whiny crybaby pants.
Yeah, diaper wearing. Anyway, so and I use all my machines are Windows, and I've been an admirer of theirs. I mean, I was a big admirer of Bill Gates.
My condolences.
But I am disgusted with them. This Fair Search org is a joke. It's not real. It's like when you see these PAC ads that say, they're opposed to whatever, and it's the Coalition for a Better America. But really, it's all the industries that would lose money over the bill. They're phony. It's dishonest, and for Microsoft of all people to complain about Google using its popular site, not monopoly. Google has no monopolies, I don't think. It's popular. I'm sorry, Bing sucks. Okay, very few people use Bing. Maybe it'll get better. If it becomes better than Google, probably all of us will use it more. The reason we use Google is not because we're in bed with Google. It's because everything else sucks. And any 2 college kids could start the next one.
People that use Bing say that it's not that much different than Google. I think the problem is that nobody is going to switch. There's no compelling reason to switch, even if it's as good.
It has to be better to make you switch.
Yeah, and not only does it have to be better, but you have to know about it.
And Google, they busted Bing. They busted Bing scraping the search results from Google to seed their thing. I mean, they're all whores, And I'm just calling out Microsoft, and I'm saying that they're pathetic and whiny. And if they could just build some damn good products, this Surface thing, the Windows Phone, their
Windows 8 is a courageous project. It is courageous on their part. You got to get. They have come up with something different. Windows Phone is different.
I'm saying
they're betting on it. They're going cloud based. So they are a courageous company trying to move forward, and they're committed to doing it. They're committed to the Metro experience.
Then why don't they stop lying, and why don't they stop doing sleazy things? Why don't they act like grown-ups?
Yahoo is changing slightly for the better.
Yahoo doesn't even do search anymore, do they?
They did allow you now to enter your phone number in case you lose your Yahoo account.
Gee, I wonder where they got that idea. Let's sue them.
I know.
Come on. I mean, why don't they just innovate? I mean, but even like, Steve Jobs, who I don't like Apple. Even Steve Jobs.
Don't say that he innovated.
Don't
say it.
Look.
No, they don't innovate. They just take a really good idea and make it work.
They make it work. Tablets with rounded corners were on Star Trek. I've watched every season.
Yeah. They make elegant
phone existed
products.
before. The digital media player existed before. They just figured it was a deal maker. He finally got the record companies to agree to sell their songs for $1. He got the book companies to, he made the deals. He was not the tech geek. He was the visionary, the salesman. Remember that Wozniak was the guy who built the damn computers. Jobs was the one who made the deals and had the vision.
Give you an example. What they would do if they were running Google Plus, for example, is they would make it work right. They would fix a lot of the issues.
They take open source projects, put their spin on it, and then try to patent it.
Whoa! Hang on a second.
Yeah, make it work. Make it elegant.
Craig. Did you just say that if somebody at Apple was running Google, they would actually fix things? Is that what you said?
That's right.
That's right. Nonsense. That's horse hockey. There are so many problems inside Apple products. You talk to any Apple fanboy, and they'll give you a long litany of places that Apple has utterly screwed up their own product line.
It's hard, though, because all these companies are competing on the...
My iPhone is very easy to use. It works. It doesn't give any trouble. No issues at all. Everything I want it to do, it does.
Right. You probably want it to do like next to nothing.
No antenna gate.
The same way that if you want to do next to nothing on Google...
That's right. That's what they should do, is they should gut out a lot of the junk and get everything working, the basic stuff working well, and then slowly improve it from there.
But the basic stuff
not just try to throw everything out there.
But they're forced to. You guys are missing the point. Look, the computer is the... I'm saying at the base level, these are computers, right? Phones and all the stuff Google's doing. The computer is pretty much the first machine that was ever created by humans designed to do more than one thing. It's the first multi-purpose machine. And all these tech companies...
the Gutenberg typing machine.
No, what I'm saying is all these companies are getting competition from each other. Apple got into the phone business. They were in the computer business. They're in the music business now. Remember, they had to do a lawsuit. They had a lawsuit from the Beatles because they agreed that they wouldn't use the Apple logo, the name for music, because the Beatles had Apple Records. And then now Google's into the phone business, and they started with a search engine. Microsoft started to search it. They're all competing on all these different things. It's very difficult to supervise that kind of diversity. And so you get to what Pam was talking about, silos in a large company. Like Samsung is into like literally like 1,000 different things. I think they do crop seeds. I mean, they're big, and it's difficult. And all these companies have issues to varying degree. And I'll tell you what, I haven't seen a whole lot of innovation out of Apple since the passing of Steve Jobs, Monica.
Okay. And you're most successful, though, when you keep it simple. And like I said earlier, what is Google most successful with?
But you can't do that, Monica, because then you become RIM. Then you become RIM, and you get swept aside, and you become a legacy.
We had a bunch of comments, and Anthony had a good one up. Anthony, do you want to?
Well, but wait a minute. Let me finish that topic. I'm not saying that Google has to keep everything simple, but if you can keep an element of simplicity in all of your products, then you can keep the majority of that user base going with you.
To a degree, they're doing that. Like they fight against, like, we've had Chi on, and we've said, well, can we have a button that does this? And he's like, no. You know, we like our white space. I don't want too many options.
Out of a lot of this,
and they've gotten rid of. And to be fair, they've gotten rid of a lot of stuff. Larry Page keeps shutting down whole. You know, these are the 30 companies 30 products we're shutting down next month. So they are trying to do what Monica's saying. They're just they could only get the user experience as good as what Apple does, and that's probably their biggest weakness. The whole user experience, trying to make it simple. You know, you could basically figure out Facebook pretty well. MySpace was easy. The old America Online was so easy to figure out back in the olden days, right?
Facebook is falling down on this now, though, because they're making it more and more complicated.
I'm gonna have to get even more adjectives to be derogatory toward Facebook if we get into that. I'm out of them. I've used them all in Microsoft. Okay, Alan, please.
Okay, we've got a bunch of comments. Anthony, you had a comment up before. Do you want to bring it back?
All right, here it is. So David Ultra asks, when has the FTC successfully prosecuted an antitrust case against a major corporation? The IBM case went on for about a dozen years and netted nothing. The Microsoft case was pretty much a joke, and I can't agree with him more on the Microsoft
Imagine
case.
The government doing something for years and not making any progress, and it all being a joke and costing a lot of money. Imagine that happening.
I was inside IBM for half of that time period when the whole antitrust lawsuit was going on, and it was a joke. It might have been true in the, and actually if you go back through all the details of the history of IBM during the computer era, there was no time where they actually had a monopoly. They were dominant, but they were dominant because they were the best. And
and again,
who does that sound like?
In all of these cases, we're not necessarily talking a strict monopoly in the AT&T sense of the word. What we are talking about is a company using its massive dominance to prevent its competitors from doing something.
Quick question, Alan. What about the epic Netscape versus Internet Explorer battle? The U.S. government versus Microsoft over that, where they said that
they had to decouple the browser.
Them to ship. That's sort of analogous here. What do you guys think of that?
That's entirely analogous. And I would point out that Microsoft was forced to do a bunch of things, and probably at the very least, it tied up a lot of their resources to try to comply in some vague sense. And that's part of why they lost their market share.
Another analogy would be Bing is to Google as OS2 was to Windows.
Oh, you're killing me.
That's a different.
But just look, where is Netscape now?
It's Firefox
now.
Yeah, exactly. They crushed them. They killed them. Where's WordPerfect?
Ask Jeeves.
Dead.
WordPerfect was great. Remember WordPerfect 5.1?
Yeah, you know, I mean, so, Lotus.
I knew all the shortcodes.
When's the last time you heard Lotus, right? It's just, Microsoft was behemoth.
Corel Draw. GeoWorks. Remember GeoWorks? That was a great UI. It was dumbed down, simple, like for Craig. It's great. Sorry, Alan. Go ahead, Alan. You got more comments?
No, we do have some more comments. This one from David. Unless Microsoft changes their internal corporate culture, they'll never make a truly superior product. They eat their own, and they don't have the drive to really excel, pun maybe intended. They obviously think Windows 8 is a change. Remains to be seen. I think he's got a point there. I think what Jeff said earlier about Windows 8 is true. They're obviously trying something new, different, and radical. I think their argument that it's inherently better remains to be seen. I think it's got major, major flaws, but I've got to give them credit. They're trying something different, which is good because they really don't have a choice. If they don't try something different, they're just toast. But I think the point about needing to look at what they're doing internally really is the issue. Just the way they've structured themselves, the way they're trying to do things is still a problem.
Did you just say that if they don't do something, they're toast?
Yeah.
Everybody laughed at me when I predicted that Microsoft's downfall several months ago.
Well, everyone just laughs at you, Craig.
Okay.
It has nothing to do with what you're saying.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Craig, everyone you say is toast. So
for the record,
they are.
Craig makes these crazy predictions about every company and then clings to the two that turn out to be true and promotes the hell out of them. He is a salesman at heart. Does Anthony have something?
Yeah, Anthony's got something. Go ahead, Anthony.
Craig.
So David Cox says even Google has issues like the current text-speech translate glitch, where apparently giraffes love the iPad. Yeah, I don't think it's in our notes, but
you want to explain it? Go ahead.
So if you go to Google Translate and there's some search query that you give I don't want to do it on the fly. There's a search query that you do about what is a giraffe, and it tells you what a giraffe is. But at the end of its spiel, it tells you something along the lines of the iPad. They love iPads. Another one is if you ask it, well, another question. It tells you about iPads again. So I don't know what is going on. I can't imagine that it's a bug because it just seems like it would be intentional. But at the same time, I don't know why Google would be, you know, mentioning their competition randomly like that. So
no, it's a. I had vaguely heard of it, and yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know. I mean, there's tons of problems. Yes, I think everyone on this show will be some of the first to talk about Google's problems. And speaking of which, we have this comment from Jeff. Like Google, Microsoft is so full of silos, deeper and even more isolated than Google's silos. I'm not entirely sure just how isolated they are. You got to remember that was one of the criticisms during Microsoft's antitrust investigation, was that they were very, very closely tied together, where in Google's case, it's almost like they're competing against each other.
Isn't it weird, though, Alan, because they literally have two social networks. They have Google Plus, and they have their own internal Google Plus, which they've now migrated to Google, paying Google Apps accounts to have your own little mini Google Plus. You'd think they'd talk to each other.
They don't.
Isn't that weird?
Well, I mean, it's
it because they're geeks?
It's partly
they're married,
and it's partly that they're not. You know, they're not. They don't get social, and partly it's because engineers like to invent their own things. So, you know, if you're focused on your own task, you don't really look around and see that somebody else who's focused on their own task is doing the exact same thing that you want to do. And I have seen this before. I've talked, you know, kind of frequently about how one sign to me when a company is truly mature, and in some cases truly dominates the market, is when it starts competing against itself. I noticed Microsoft did this years and years ago. They were releasing products that literally were competing against their own other products. They had 3 mail products out at the same time. A couple of years back, Apple started doing the same thing. They were releasing products whose only competitor was their own products. And Google is now doing the exact same thing. So I don't know if that's a sign of corporate maturity or corporate going on, you know, sliding downhill, or just, you know, total dominance of the market. But this is certainly nothing new. Okay, I got that one. Finally, I wanted to track back a little bit to something that Travis asked. It wasn't hacked, so how is the data transported from Yelp? It's really easy. It's called Google sent a spider to the Yelp website and was scraping the HTML. I mean, this is nothing new. It's really, and a lot of sites do it. They just, you know, go to a site and take all of the information down automatically. It's easy. It's not difficult. It's arguably even legal in some ways.
It's half the posts on Google Plus are reshares of other people's stuff.
Yeah, but it's not even reshares. It's like copy and paste.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's arguably at least in a gray area of legality. The question is it ethical for Google to have done so?
Absolutely
and the answer is absolutely not. Thank you, Anthony.
You know, that was the business model of Huffington Post, right?
Yeah, but Huffington Post has essentially had to clean up their act now that they've gotten legitimate.
What do you mean?
Yeah, now they were sold. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What are you talking about, Alan?
Jeff, go ahead and explain. You brought it up.
Huffington Post was just posting things. You know, when they were started out, they didn't put any original content out there.
Oh, I mean, look at Mashable.
I'm just saying.
Mashable's the worst at that now. Yeah,
but they built up a whole business model based on other people's products.
Everybody does.
To a degree. I mean, everyone. I follow, as a journalist, I follow everybody, and you'll see Reuters exclusive. Hillary Clinton slips and falls, has concussion, for one example. And then you can watch 1 minute later, AP, Hillary Clinton falls, has concussion, reports, reports, reports say that, right? Reuters. USA Today, Hillary falls, has concussion, AP. And they go bam, 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 bam. We do the same thing to a degree when we share an interesting story we find. And I'll sometimes just put the story up. We share somebody else's post. If Michael has, I think I've shared something from all of you guys at some point. Sarik has some. Sarik will look at Reddit and find these things that are hysterical, and often offensive, which Pam and I like.
Yeah, but Dan,
and then we share them, and that's how it works. They're just running ads along the side, but really, there's no difference.
The difference in all of these cases is that none of us are Google. None of us are a major technology company. We're all these,
generating revenue from it. Actually, Google, if they monetize Plus, will be generating revenue from us.
Which is fine. I never understood that Huffington Post lawsuit. I blog on Huffington Post rarely, but when I have something good, I'll put it up there. And sometimes it is buried, and sometimes it's on the front page. But I never got a dime, and I understood that was the deal. And I thought it was ridiculous for those people to sue because she sold it for $300 million or whatever. But I mean, she had investors and stuff, so I don't know how much she actually got, Ariana. But that was the deal. I mean, if I thought that was a crazy lawsuit, but we've definitely gotten off a tangent. I want to read something of the Microsoft thing real quick. Can I, Alan?
Well, it's only your show, Dan, so I guess you can.
This is from ReadWrite, formerly ReadWrite Web, which was a much better name than ReadWrite. The headline is Google's FTC settlement is an epic fail for Microsoft. And this is probably my most traction post today. Echo from Michael. Can you mute your mic, Michael Ellis, briefly? Microsoft had a pretty lousy year in 2012, putting out a string of big products, Windows 8, Windows Phone 8, and the Surface tablet, that all turned out to be disappointing, but those pale in comparison to what may be the biggest disappointment in Microsoft's history, its failure to convince antitrust regulators to take action against Google. After a 19-month investigation, despite much prodding from Microsoft, the Federal Trade Commission has reached a settlement with Google that basically amounts to a slap on the wrist. This is a crushing blow to Microsoft, which has spent millions of dollars on lobbyists and phony grassroots groups over the past several years, hoping to land Google in hot water. Indeed, Microsoft's obsession with Google doesn't just border on crazy. It is crazy, and not just a little tiny bit crazy, but full-blown bunny-boiling Ahab versus whale nutso. And then they go on and they talk about stuff like this epic fail on Twitter when they said, "Tell us your Android horror stories." I forget what hashtag they used, and it was awesome.
Droid rage.
Droid rage. And then they started saying, like, yeah, I hate it when... Well, guy, I posted some funny ones. I can't remember. What was some of the good responses? I hate how long it takes me to go to the store and trade in my iPhone for an Android. Android rage. I mean, that's a bad one. But there was some really funny meme type stuff, and they're just mean. It's like it gets down to Apple litigates. There's one of the comments on Microsoft's own post. I looked, the main counsel, I think he's like vice president and general counsel, whatever he is, some big dude at Microsoft. He posted their thing complaining that Google uses its search engine to promote its own products, which nothing wrong. Why build a search engine if you can't milk it? And they every single comment on there was trashing Microsoft. There was zero positive comments. It was 100% negative and vitriolic. I loved it, and I posted mine. I actually did a screen cap because I didn't think they would post it, so I posted it on Google Plus. It said you probably won't read this on the Microsoft site. You can read it here. And one guy said Apple litigates, Google innovates, Microsoft, I forget, another great whatever it is. Jesus Christ. Oh, gosh, sorry. Just kidding. Okay, I lost the Hangout, so I'm going to try to bring it back. Okay. And I just... Okay, my microphone is muted due to the number of participants. Okay, it crashed, server error, so I apologize for my...
Whoa, well, that was weird.
Yeah, Sheila, I'm glad you came when you did, because I said a naughty word just before you came in.
So you missed it. Thank you.
Like, oh, damn.
No, I used the Lord's name in vain. Anyway, so when the thing crashed, because I forgot that the real one wasn't crashed. So anyway, okay, so I said a bunch of stuff, and it was interesting, I guess, and we'll find out.
I heard part of it, and it was interesting.
So anyway, are we ready to move, or do you have any more comments, Alan?
I've got a follow-up on that, Dan. I've got a question for you, and this is kind of moving on, but this is the segue. So given how you feel about Microsoft, what do you think about their latest accusations against Google that Google has closed off access to YouTube?
Okay, I wanted to get you. Let me jot the time, because we're at a new thing. This is a new topic. 1:32:30. Okay. I didn't understand. You're talking about the web rootkit?
No. That's Maps.
The YouTube thing?
This is the YouTube thing, not the Maps thing.
They said they're not gonna. I don't even understand it. I know you and Michael could probably. Michael's there. You guys could probably explain this better. Frankly, I think Microsoft declared war on Google, and is so pathetic and lying and disingenuous and whiny and disgusting and a pale thin shell of its former glory, that they're in the final death throes, gasping for relevancy, is what I wrote today. I think
so. You
quite eloquently, I might add. And so I would not imagine Google would devote resources unless they had to. I mean, you have to be on iOS. You have to be on Android. Of course, they own Android.
Sure, sure. But Microsoft has said that they're perfectly willing to write their own YouTube client. All they want is free and open access to YouTube, just like anybody else would have. Is that unreasonable?
I don't understand the issues. I don't know the details, so you'd have to school me. But if anything, if I were Google,
sure.
If there were any opportunity I had to screw Microsoft, Microsoft would be screwed.
So let me summarize the issue first, and then I'll get back to you.
And you can't blame them
on that point. Let me summarize the issue first. Microsoft, basically the day before the FTC announcement was revealed, Microsoft had a salvo, basically trying to start the next round in this battle, saying that the YouTube experience on a Windows phone is far inferior to the YouTube experience on Android or iOS. And the reason why it's far inferior is because it's not possible to create a YouTube client for the Windows phone that has the same features. And the reason why it's not possible to create that client is because Google has internal APIs that they have not made public. Now, for those of you who might remember the Microsoft lawsuit from the FTC, this is unmitigated gall that Microsoft has just accused Google of doing what Netscape just had accused Microsoft of doing. So there's not a small bit of irony going on here.
Well, I am outraged that I used to have a restaurant, we sold fried chicken, and I am outraged that KFC refused to give me their recipe.
But Dan,
for their chicken.
Dan, did KFC advocate for open chicken exchanges? Did they?
Not that I remember.
I think that was Chick-fil-A.
Would they go out of business if they did?
Because Dan, Google advocates very loudly for an open internet.
True.
So is Google being hypocritical here?
Would they be stupid to do so?
I can't speak to it, really.
They'd be stupid to do so.
You know, I'd love
to support an open internet.
No, they'd be stupid to give away.
How are you equating an open internet with allowing everyone, allowing a hostile competitor who is lying about you to have access to your products?
It's one thing to give them access.
Because that's the heart of an open internet.
They have enough access to do a YouTube app. It's not how they want it to
Don't
be.
you think when Samsung is going to produce a phone that they might get a little more access to Google's inner workings than, say, Apple would? I mean, they're friendly and Apple's hostile.
Only if you're saying that you've got a closed internet.
Are we talking about a patentable thing?
No, we're not.
Then they can do whatever the hell they want.
Do they have the same access that Apple has?
Yes.
In fact, the Apple YouTube app is the superior one right now. I couldn't even find. We were getting complaints about audio problems on my beautiful Samsung Galaxy Note 2, which I highly recommend. Look how large and beautiful it is. So I couldn't even find my Hangout. I went to the YouTube app, and I went to my channel. I went to my profile. I couldn't find the live thing because I muted. That's why the audio went out. I tried to shut the sound down so I could watch and listen to our show live while Alan was talking with the panel, right? And so I couldn't even locate my Hangout. So I had to go to the Google Plus app, look at my profile, and then click on the thing there, and then it opened it up in YouTube. So it ain't perfect, right? But apparently the iOS new YouTube app is phenomenal. Like it makes you go sideways and stuff like that.
Written by Google. So it's using Google's internal APIs, not the APIs.
Look, they're yanking Microsoft's chain. It's well deserved. Screw Microsoft. If Google can yank them in a legal way.
So you're I got a question for you to the panel, real quick. Microsoft stock is at $26. Would you buy Microsoft? Do you think that they will be at $30 by the end of the year or less?
Jeff, you drink that. What are you talking about?
I know. I'm serious.
$26. What's Google? Like how many hundreds?
It's I mean, and over the last 5 years, it's been within that range. So it hasn't gone up. It hasn't gone down. It's gone from 30 to 26. It's dropped $4 in 5 years.
It was fine when Bill Gates left. It
certainly is not. It's not an investment that I'd want to make. I'm not saying that it can't get to $30, but it's not an investment I'd want to make.
Anthony's hanging on to his RIM stock.
When I was in high school, I did one of those stock market simulations, and Microsoft was. This is my great story, but Microsoft was doing terrible, consistently over the last year, whatever, and they made some announcement. I can't even remember what, but I'm like, hey, everyone, we got to buy this stock, and they're like, no, we don't want to buy it, but I convinced them, and they bought it, and it went up the next day, and I'm like, hey guys, we got to sell this stock, and they're like, well, no, we don't want to sell it because, it's up. I'm like, let's get rid of it, and we did, and it went down. But I mean, basically, my point is that the stock can go up and down, drastically in just one day. And
but what I'm saying, it's a valuation.
There's nothing.
It's a valuation of the company based on many people.
If I had to make a prediction on what Microsoft stock is going to do in a year, I'd say it's going to go down.
Going back to the
bold prediction, Anthony.
It's going up, buddy.
Going back to the issue with the YouTube app, the base product or the base issue of this is that in the case of Android and all these other operating systems, they have the thing called Google Apps. They are proprietary applications that have certain internal APIs and different things. It is not like they're saying these people can do whatever they want with this YouTube app and Microsoft can't. Everyone has the same capability across the board except with Google internally. It's not like they're making one people give certain APIs and they get certain APIs. No, it's the case across the board.
So you're saying that it's absolutely fine for Google to be violating its own open web policy?
They're not. They're not complaining about the Google. They're not complaining about the Gmail app. That has the same proprietary things with Gmail that hooks in that everyone else does not have.
No, Gmail. No. Gmail.
The application. I'm talking about application. I'm just talking about
Gmail has a completely open API.
I'm talking about the application, not the APIs. I'm talking about the application. It does not. Their application. If they wrote a Gmail app right now on Windows Phone, it cannot do the same things that their Gmail app can do.
Sure, it can. What can't it do?
The issue I've seen is
there's actually one thing that I could see that it can't do.
I will have to actually play with it because I don't have a Windows Phone.
Do we know Microsoft's telling the truth because they've lied about everything else?
It's interesting that a lawyer posted this blog post, by the way.
There's been a lot of people who have been able to say that it seems that the YouTube experience on a Windows phone is inferior. And Google, when asked to comment, has basically said no comment.
I mean, like if you're going to, have a program on the company's own platform and then a program on the company's competitor's platform, I should hope that the company that's making both products can make the better product.
But that's the thing. YouTube is not a product. It's not a program.
Sure it is.
Data. No, it's data.
It's a platform.
No, it's data. It's video.
It's a platform. You can
tell me God.
Video right now.
Whoa, hold on. So,
Geeks, calm down.
Guys. Time out.
So on Windows Phone, Microsoft has access to the videos, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, it's obviously more involved, things that they want to do, whether it's, accessing the data on the most popular videos, or who even knows what, without going into...
Microsoft can't have full access, Alan. They can buy an Android or an iPhone.
They can go on the web.
Yeah, they can use a beautiful Surface and access.
So what I'm saying,
you know what? Look, they're screwing with them in the same way that we treat England and Germany differently than we treat North Korea. Microsoft is North Korea. They lie and they're evil now. They just make stuff up.
But here's the thing.
Look at the propaganda that they're putting out.
You're working on right now.
The nonsense that they're spewing, the dishonesty they're displaying. And
so
they
you're going
expect
out
to be
and
treated.
Dan, are you going out and buying an Apple MacBook right now so you can do your program? No, you're going to stick with Microsoft, right?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
But
so
Microsoft
because
Windows
it's for
7.
business.
Windows 7,
Microsoft
not 8.
is for business. It's a business-based application platform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
So what I think is we really cannot comment on this story unless Microsoft says, hey, we want to be able to do this, but we can't do it. We don't know what Microsoft can't seem to do. So
Gerwin does.
To go, I mean, for Microsoft to say, hey, we can't do what we want to do, but they're not telling you what they want to do. I mean, I can go, hey, I want to make an app, and I can't do what I want to do. But if I'm not telling you what I can't do, then who the hell knows if I'm telling the truth? And like Dan says, Microsoft is so, perplexed with all these lies and, whatever. Currently.
What word did you say?
I don't.
They're
I
so
think
what?
I think I just.
Did you make up a word?
I think it said perplexed.
I did say perplexed.
That's awesome. It's a new definition you've just created. Remember, people create the definitions, not the dictionary. The dictionary follows the people in the writing. So you may have just created a word, a new usage for perplexed. You want to throw some of those comments from George Cozy up, Alan and Anthony or whatever? And there's some great ones. From.
Coy says that they should have programmed the app in HTML5.
No, Cozy. About the stock price.
Let's see the stock price, yeah.
All right, so Cozy says, George Cozy says stock price equals variation of a company based on guesswork, voodoo, rumors, and speculation made by people that have nothing to do with the company itself.
He's exactly right.
Which is why stock prices...
Those guys are called analysts. They're stock analysts. Their job is to follow the company. They look at the ratio of the company, the price per earnings, and they do the valuation based on industry.
And when trading was actually done by hand, that mattered. But now it's all done by frickin' machine, and it doesn't matter anymore.
How did we ever meet George
Sure
Cozy?
does.
Alan, do you remember, Pam? How do we meet George Cozy?
Did
he just randomly watch the show?
He just started commenting one day.
I remember because I had to bug. I am actually the reason for the George. I claim credit, and he will back me up. I claim credit for the popularity explosion of George Cozy because he used to post everything just to his circles. And I said, George, please start posting publicly because Pam will back me up on this. He puts out these gems like this.
Awesome.
That are just, every post he does is, worth reading. And I was like, post this publicly. I want to share it. And then he's like, oh, I don't know. He's shy. And then finally he did. And now he's like a rock star. All the cool people follow George Cozy.
Okay. Yep. We have two comments from Gerwin that I want to highlight here.
Please do, please.
Who explain a little bit
and explain who he is.
Gerwin is somebody who follows the show a great deal. He is the excellent author of Hangout Comment Tracker, which we have been using this evening to display all of the comments on the screen.
If someone wants to get that for their own Hangouts, how do they do that?
They can find it using the Hangout Toolbox program, which is available in Find Hangouts everywhere.
So you could just search for that in Google+.
It will show up as one of the recommended apps if you start a Hangout.
So it's okay, cool, awesome.
So Gerwin says two things. First, he says, actually the biggest problem is getting the video data, especially for high-def data, which is only available as an iframe, and the other comment of his just disappeared on me. I don't know if Anthony can still see it.
Is it the everything one?
I don't know. It just disappeared on me.
It just disappeared on me as well. There were 4, and now there's 3.
Gerwin says everything else can be easily done via the API?
Yes.
So yeah.
So yes, there's a lot of things that can be done using the API, and I don't think anyone is saying they can't. But what Google is basically saying is, or sorry, what Microsoft is basically saying is that, and quoting something from them, Google has refused to allow Microsoft's new Windows phones to access this YouTube metadata in the same way that Android and iPhones do. As a result, Microsoft's YouTube app on Windows phones is basically just a browser displaying YouTube's mobile website without the rich functionality offered on competing phones.
All right, so that's the answer to my question, which is what is the functionality that is missing from Microsoft phones? And I would say that if, and only if, iOS is getting access to that information, that's a issue.
iOS is getting access to that information because Google made the YouTube app for iOS.
That's true too.
I mean, that's basically what it boils down to. Is Microsoft is saying, they can't make a product as good as Google, not because they are technically incapable of doing so, but because Google is preventing them from getting access to that data.
So the question is, do we think that Google will eventually make a YouTube app that is functional for Windows Phone like they did for iOS?
Only if Windows Phone gets more than 5 users.
Well, and the other argument is that would Google make a YouTube app the way that they made the YouTube app for iOS today? I think that there could be a strong argument that if they were doing it all over, that they would not have given iOS such a powerful app.
Well, they did.
But they did. But this was a relatively, especially in terms of smartphones, a long time ago.
No, this was months ago. This was like weeks or months ago.
All right.
What happened is that in the latest release of iOS, Apple basically pulled the plug on just about every Google product, including the YouTube. And so Google released their own YouTube app that works on iOS, and it was much better than the old one.
All I get from that quote that you read is that they're whining that they don't have an app from Google. That's all I get. And
it sounds like a legitimate...
I don't think they have to make the same experience. They have access to YouTube. They, in my opinion, a company does not have to enable the access the same way across every platform. They don't have to. They don't need to. They shouldn't.
Well, this is the type of behavior, though, that is going to get Google in trouble with federal agencies.
Exactly. I totally agree.
Just because it's Google.
This is probably a legitimate complaint.
Not just because it's Google, but because Google. Whoa, let me finish my comment. Not just because it's Google, but because Google is such a large, powerful company.
Because it's Google. Now, if a startup today started an app, they put on every platform. The app that they're launching, they put on every platform except Windows, Microsoft. No one will care.
I mean, Android has what 70% of the market, and I have no idea what the percentage is, but probably like 80 to 90% of the video, online video market. I mean, this is a big deal.
What does that have to do with YouTube?
They have a commanding need of the market.
I think you can make an argument, Michael and Anthony. I think you can make an argument that APIs should be similar to patents. I'm not sure I agree with it, but I think you can make an argument. APIs should be similar to patents in terms of fair, reasonable terms, non-discriminatory.
I don't think this should be.
Let's not use patents.
It should be more property.
Property. Argument of anything because patents are so broken. But I think your point is that. Well, my point would be I don't want to put words into Dan's mouth, but I think that APIs should be equally accessible to.
They are.
That's exactly my point. I mean, the argument about the patents. In fact, on the FTC thing, they agreed to license Motorola's patents at reasonable prices, under fair terms, and in a non-discriminatory way. So they wouldn't charge Apple more than they would charge, Samsung. And
so the API. The issue is not the API; it's the experience.
Gerwin says the YouTube API is actually one of the richest and most powerful out there, covering basically everything you need to rebuild the YouTube website.
It's not the API; it's the experience that they're complaining about. They have access to YouTube.
No, what is their explain their complaint? I really don't understand their complaint. Can someone?
Let me quote again what they said.
I read it. I'm looking at it.
And then you missed the part that it said that they're not looking for Google to provide.
No, they're not.
The program. They're looking for Google to provide the access so that Microsoft can provide the same experience.
So what I'm not getting, because basically we've established that Google is not providing the metadata to Microsoft, whatever that means. That doesn't mean very much to me. But then Gerwin says the YouTube API is actually extremely rich and powerful. So I'm not. I mean, if they're not providing metadata, is it meta or meta? Anyways, it doesn't matter.
They're getting the data.
I mean, either they are providing that data or they're not. And I mean, he said one thing and then he's saying another thing as far as I'm understanding it. And this is from, as Dan would say, from 10,000 feet in the air, because I don't understand
That's
APIs.
Copyrighted.
They're providing the metadata. It's just not looking the same way that it acts in other things. That's quoting it. Google has refused to allow Microsoft new Windows phones to access this YouTube metadata in the same way. They're getting the data. It's just not the same experience.
No. When we're talking about accessing it in the same way, that could be just for that could be that Google is letting its own apps do searching on the metadata, but in order for Microsoft to get the same data, it's got to download the metadata for every single video in all of YouTube.
Okay.
That could be what that means.
Well, that's not functional.
No, of course that's not functional. So yes, technically they could be allowing them access to the same metadata, but they may not be allowing the API access in the same way, or in a way that's even vaguely useful.
But they don't have to.
Okay, look, here's the deal.
No, hang on. No, Dan, let me reply to Michael on that one. So, Michael, you're saying that APIs should be private and controlled by individual companies. Is that what you're saying?
That's not what happens now?
No, it's not. Because if that's what you were saying, then Google would never have existed in the first place.
Of course not. Because they have to crawl everything off.
Right. The reason why Google exists at all is because we have an open web. The reason why Google keeps advocating for an open web is because that is the core of their business. If the open web goes away, then Google is dead, dead, dead. Period.
So I think that APIs should be controlled by the company, but that they should, like I said previously, if they're going to provide company A with one set of APIs, that they need to provide company B with the same exact set of APIs, and companies B, C, D, E, and F.
Right.
And my point, they do that.
For 90% of what Google does, that's exactly what they do. But apparently, in this case, the YouTube apps are using internal APIs that they are not making public.
Okay, to illustrate what Alan's talking about, look back to the story when Twitter closed their pipe to Google because Google wouldn't pay them what X amount of money that they wanted to get access to everyone's tweets. Because at the time, they had this wonderful feature. What was it? Google Real Time, right, in Google Search? And you could, if you were searching for a hot topic like the Newtown shooting and you wanted the absolute latest stuff, you could do not just in news, but in regular Google search. And it would actually include tweets, especially tweets that have been retweeted. It was great. And then they didn't come to terms. And in other words, they wouldn't pay what Twitter wanted to get the information. And then they said, okay, we just won't include it anymore. And they closed the real-time search in Google. And that doesn't exist anymore. And then Twitter, of course, publicly moaned and groaned, but really it was them that caused the problem because they wouldn't lower their price. So
which goes back to equal footing.
But
because in this case,
it doesn't have to be equal footing if someone's lying about you, is my point. They probably are screwing with Microsoft. They're probably not cooperating with them in the same way they would with Samsung. They're probably they're probably not bending over backwards to Microsoft the way they would with other companies. They're probably, I wouldn't be surprised if they were deliberately trying to sabotage the Windows Phone. And frankly, it's well earned. I have no problem with it. Anything that, if I was Google, anything I could do to screw Microsoft, I would do it. And then in 6 or 18 months, they'll get, pay a fine of about 30 seconds of their gross revenue, and they'll apologize profusely. And in the meantime, Windows Phone will be 6 to 18 months behind the curve as a result, and it will all have been worth it.
Is that being evil or not?
No, it's being responsive. Being right doesn't mean you'll win. If you lied about me, anyone, if they deliberately lie about me, then I would do everything I can to screw that person. And I think Google's doing that. There's nothing wrong there's nothing wrong with a nation or a company having high principles and doing good things, and at the same time having a good military to defend yourself.
If you can show me one.
Go ahead, Michael.
If you can show me one company that has different access than anybody outside of Google, then I can see where something's not right and something's not done right. But every company outside of Google has the same availability to those APIs.
Don't we? Have we established that Microsoft's telling the truth? Because they lie it's so frequent that they make stuff up, they manufacture falsehoods, and they lie repeatedly. They're disingenuous, sleazy. Is there any reason to believe that anything they're saying is true?
In response to this story, Google basically gave a non-answer. So they did not deny.
Not that that's unusual. Come on.
Right. So basically, they didn't deny that Microsoft has limited access.
But they did. But we don't know the full story. See,
we don't know the full
Microsoft
story.
twists stuff.
Everybody does have limited access.
I will point out that I have not brought up some of the larger insults that Microsoft hurled at Google in this case, because it's basically, Microsoft slinging dirt. I was strictly focusing on the technical things that people could confirm.
And I completely understand why you would not bring up those things, but you almost need to bring those things up because, like we keep on saying, Microsoft recently is slinging a lot of dirt, and to ignore it when they consistently sling the dirt at one point and then talk about it at another point, it is kind of ignoring a major piece of the puzzle.
Not only do they sling the dirt, Anthony, but they do it through false phony shell groups, because not only are they sleazy, lying bastards, they're cowards, and they cower behind a fake group that doesn't even exist except on paper. And then they're expected to be treated like a normal citizen. They should be behind bars. You kidding me?
In this case, however, it was Microsoft themselves slinging the dirt directly. And the reason why I don't bring it up is because, honestly, I don't want to give it any more attention than it deserves, which is
Well, I think it's enough just to mention that, you know, they are slinging dirt without going into specifics. But I do think that the fact that it's happening needs to be brought up in order to, see the entire puzzle.
I got to note the audio issues we're having. I apologize. We're having it's a very long-lasting issue that they haven't figured out yet, but there's some fluctuations in the audio, and if I'm getting them, then it's going in the Hangout on Air. But when you see Allen, it affects some people more than others. But when you see Allen's volume going up and down, it's not his microphone or something. We had some questions about that. And Anthony, same thing. It's I don't know. It's a weird bug that they can't obviously figure out yet. But hopefully next week.
Anyway,
are we good
blame
on
it
this?
on Microsoft.
Do we all agree that Microsoft sucks and is evil, and
we
that
pretty
Google's
much do.
awesome and is flawless?
Yes, I've got another point to illustrate this, and it's actually an interesting one. No, it isn't.
Please do, because we've never had a 2-hour topic before, so we're close.
This is the one you alluded to earlier. That apparently there are people on Windows Phone who are saying, "Wait a minute, I go to Google Maps and it now redirects me to the Google homepage."
Are you switching topics?
Yes, I'm switching topics. And I'm
out
actually
of order as well. I love that.
Yeah, I was about to adjust it, but you cut me off.
Go ahead.
Basically, these Windows phones, people are saying, "I tried to go to Google Maps and it redirected me to the Google's homepage instead. Google is being evil. This is horrible. This is terrible." And as people started looking into the story a little bit more, people realized, hey, wait a minute. Google Maps always worked like crap on a Windows phone.
Michael, we're getting like 50% volume back from you, buddy. We got to get you how
about now? Do I sound better now?
Yeah, because you muted Michael Ellis.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
Feeding back through Michael.
Basically, people realized, hey, wait a minute, Google Maps was always crap on a Windows phone, and this is Google finally saying, oh, hey, we're not really supporting Windows Phone right now, so we're not going to let you have a bad experience with us. There are a lot of technical reasons why the experience is crap, and I was hoping Michael was going to help me explain this, but he's wandering off right now, probably to get pizza.
He eats like 12,000 calories a day, and there's literally like 2 ounces of fat, maybe.
He burns it off, So I've got.
He thinks really hard.
At Augusta National, what a hard life he leads. He gets to play all day. He defends America by day. He does hangouts at night, and he gets to hang out at Augusta National. That's awesome. That's where they have the Masters golf tournament. If you don't know what that is.
So basically, the technical reason for what's going on is when Google made their mobile their mobile maps setup, they tailored it for a particular set of browser features. And those browser features happen, no coincidence, to be ones in something in a toolkit called WebKit. Now, WebKit is a product that happens to be developed jointly by Google and Apple, and a few other people. It's an open source project that both Google and Apple have contributed to. No surprise, Microsoft isn't involved in any way in this product. So their browser is based on their own internal development, and there are some differences between how their browser does things and how a WebKit-based browser will do things. Because of these differences, Google hasn't really seen a need to go out and support them in any great detail. So the experience on a Internet Explorer mobile browser is significantly worse than one on a WebKit-based browser. It's not too surprising, and in some ways it's disappointing that web standards really have fallen apart in a lot of in some ways. We talk a lot about standardization under HTML5, but we're so far from that, it's not funny. Do you have anything further to add on that, Michael? Did you even hear what we were talking about?
Yes, I did. I think they supported it for WebKit. They support the standards enough for WebKit, yes. Microsoft uses a whole different type of system. Therefore, why should they tailor everything they've done? Why should they tailor it for such a minute crowd?
Well, it's not minute.
It's not.
Windows Phone is minute, but IE is not.
Well, but there's the thing, Anthony. It's just Windows Phone that this bad experience is on.
Exactly.
The desktop version, they've got the Internet Explorer desktop version. They have tailored versions for that, and that's working at least adequately. You know, so it's just Internet Explorer phone. And
hold up. Well, next month we hear why don't they have a YouTube app on Ubuntu? Huh? They don't have access the same way, right? Their maps don't work in the freaking thing.
Well, but there's the thing, Michael. I mean, you know, if we talk about, you know, let's look at that. The fact that desktops have such a fragmented set of APIs, but Google is putting in the effort to work on all of them. They're working around the bad, fragmented, non-open APIs that are out there for desktop map stuff and desktop YouTube, but they're not willing to provide a nice, clean public API on the other side?
But
that's hypocrisy.
It's the same API that's available for everyone outside of Google. It's one thing to give some people API access and some not, but it's the same across the board.
Well, we drifted back into the previous topic.
But isn't Google slowly just removing all support for Windows Mobile?
They don't have any, do they? Is there any Google-supported thing on Windows Mobile?
Well, no. But the question is, should they be writing for WebKit browsers, which is a non-standard API, or should they be writing for HTML5, which is a standard API?
They don't have that responsibility.
Yeah, it's a company decision. Whatever they make their decision to do.
Alan, you're old enough to remember Betamax, right?
Yes, I am.
So it's the same type of thing, right?
But well, no, it's not, because here's the difference is that, and I can't remember who was behind the VHS standard. But what was going on? What's going on in this case is, on one hand, Google is saying HTML5 is great. Everyone should be moving to HTML5. In fact, where is it here? I have this wonderful sticker that I got from Google talking about how HTML5 is so awesome. But here they are not developing to HTML5 themselves. I'm not saying they can't do it. I'm not saying that they shouldn't do it. I'm saying they're being
Time is not right. Time is not right.
Right. I'm saying that it's hypocritical for them to say on one hand that HTML5 is great, and then on the other hand to not support it. That's the problem I've got.
And if it's not the right time for HTML5, when is the right time going to be? When HTML6 comes out? I pose that as a serious question, because when was it right to develop in HTML 4.1 when HTML5 came out?
Half the people on the freaking internet, half the developers, aren't that many people doing HTML5.
No, that's true.
Why should they advocate that when only this many people are doing it?
They're advocating it because they're supposed to be the leaders in this industry. If they're saying they can't do something with HTML5, then they're the ones who should be pushing the fixes.
I think the problem is the same problem that you have with Linux, where you have the minority telling the majority what they should be doing, and when you can't even get the minority to, this is not the same as Linux, but when you can't even get the minority to do how are you supposed to get the majority to do it? If you can't get Google to And this is what you're saying, Alan. If you can't get Google to support HTML5, how are you supposed to get everyone else to support it?
Exactly. I think that's a very good way to sum it up and summarize. Which
moving on.
Which I guess means that we should be moving on to the final.
I thought we were gonna be wrapping up soon, but didn't look like it.
I got a couple fun things that'll be quick, just controversial stuff, which we try to avoid during the show. So what do we got? What's the next?
If you thought this API debate was boring.
Oh my God! I swear to God, I read the story twice, Alan. I listened to everything you guys said, kinda. I've zero interest. This is like bamboo shoots shoved up my fingernails.
Well, the reason why you have no
Which one is this one?
No, Dan, you have a great deal of interest. You're interested in anything that will screw Microsoft over, right?
Oh, please. You know I'm more diverse than that. I also hate Apple.
That's true.
Okay. So at 211:48, what you got for us?
I don't know. You added
the Wall
all
Street
of
Journal
thing. I don't recognize a single one. Oh, the Wall Street Journal. The final component to this whole back and forth battle is that the Wall Street Journal, who we all know loves Google Plus dearly, kind of laid out. And again, this is a Google Plus story because we have to have one or two in this show.
This is similar to what I said last week. Remember? It's when I figured out you had to sign up for Google Plus if you signed into a Gmail account.
Right. This is the Wall Street Journal laying out this grand conspiracy theory that they're inflating numbers by forcing people at gunpoint to sign up for Google Plus.
So I have a strong opinion on this.
Let me finish with this first, Anthony. The great part of this is that the author of the article is actually active on Google Plus, posted a link to the article in his profile, and the first comment was Vic Gundotra replying to him, essentially saying, "Great article, would be nice if you used some good numbers."
Was it Amir?
And he only got 5
I'm
shares.
paraphrasing.
Was it Amir?
It said that he only got 5 shares.
Who was the writer?
Where did I put it?
I don't follow him.
I know Amir. Was he?
The writer is Amir.
Yeah, Amir Afradi. Yeah, he's. That's interesting because he keeps. That's probably in reference to the fact that at the end of the article he quotes an over a year old number, the 3 minutes. For every 7 days you spend on Facebook, you spend 6 seconds on Google Plus or whatever the hell it was. He quoted that.
An interesting.
I don't see how that number's relevant currently.
I think that an interesting thing that Vic pointed out was that first of all, users are spending on average 12 minutes only in their stream, which I don't think 12 minutes is a very impressive number, but I think the major takeaway is that he's talking about only in their stream. So when I'm spending 4 hours during this show in a Hangout, even Google is not counting those numbers when they're calculating the average number, and when they're spending.
But Anthony, I'm also in my stream right now.
You may or may not.
I'm posting stuff
But for 8 hours, Anthony, when you're at work, if I plus mention you with something and you respond to me, I hope your boss is not listening. You would probably would you get the email and respond in the email, or would you actually open your Google Plus app? Or go to a desktop. You're gonna respond on the email.
I would use actually I do. I'd use the app.
Oh, then pretend I didn't.
Yeah, I don't use email either.
No, but that number didn't. That number.
The other thing.
The Gmail
Anthony,
thing is fantastic.
Anthony, before you go on to the other thing, you make an excellent. You make an excellent point, and this is a point that we've been raising for a while, and a number of people have started bringing it up again this week. Google isn't publishing numbers that have anything to do with Hangouts. And it's a good question, why not? They haven't published, for example, the total number of Hangout hours that have been going on. They haven't published the total number of Hangouts on air hours that have been going on. This is
it's
something
because
that's
they
crucial.
they don't innovate Hangouts. They don't tie Hangouts into the stream.
They do innovate Hangouts.
They do, but Alan, you'd be remiss without pointing out that not only do they not release data, and then I'll shut up for Monica, not only do they not release data, but they actually hide data. On the YouTube, on the view count, they actually hide it.
Because they
it's not just not releasing it; it's covering it up. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Monica. I just wanted to add that to what Alan was saying. I think that's because if you have a Hangout and you're trying to do a good show and you have 3 or 4 views, they don't want to embarrass you, I think, is what it is. Go ahead, Monica. I'm sorry.
It's not because it's bad. People can't find Hangouts. And here's the thing. People will watch anything. You put a video of a cat walking across the floor on YouTube, people will watch that sucker. And it will be the most...
But Monica, they do publish how much total YouTube hours there are. They publish several...
I know. I've watched analytics.
However many years of YouTube video is posted every second.
Because it's impressive.
They'll do analytics for YouTube, but YouTube and Hangouts are separate. And it's very difficult right now for people on YouTube to find Hangouts. And it's very difficult for people in the stream to find Hangouts because right now they're very unattractive. They see a blank screen when a Hangout is starting. Or if you take the URL from the YouTube page and you copy-paste it, it just looks like a transparent screen. And it's not, you don't want to click on it. Like Billy Wilson's show was going live as this show was going live, and I saw his show starting, and it was just like a transparent screen.
Right, but why isn't Google publishing those numbers to hype up Hangouts?
You got me. It seems like they would want to make these innovations first.
You know, it's interesting because I would traditionally say that because the Hangout team is separated from the Google Plus proper team, but I mean, Vic very clearly understands that Hangouts are a very important part of Google Plus. So I think that that's a very good question because I feel that the important people that would provide the numbers for Google Plus numbers actively understand the importance of Hangouts, so why are they not sharing those numbers, which I think the Hangout numbers would probably be very impressive because, well, I don't think that there's a large population of the Google Plus community at large using Hangouts. I think that the people that do use Hangouts use them for extremely long periods of time. It would make the average number look very impressive. Something else that I wanted to point out is that when the Wall Street Journal is posting these usage numbers, they're not posting usage numbers for the mobile app. So that's another area where the numbers are useless at this point, whether you're getting them from an outside source like the Wall Street Journal is, or even if you're getting them from an inside source like Google Plus, because Google Plus, Google is not providing numbers except for people that are in the stream, and so that I don't know if that means mobile usage or not, but assuming that it is, there's just so many other components of Google Plus that they're not talking about.
Where do you think they're getting the data, though, Anthony? I mean, is it from these other companies that are reporting the data? And what are they reporting?
Where do I think who is getting the data?
Google. Because what I've heard is that Google is reporting inaccurate numbers. Inaccurate user numbers, inaccurate active user numbers, inaccurate
and I'd say we have a number of comments to that extent as well, but all of them just disappeared from my screen, so I can't bring them up at the moment.
It's the Chinese censors.
But
I don't think Google is the one with inaccurate numbers. I would say that they'd have an accurate number of users, but I'd say whether people actually spend that time here is possibly inaccurate. However, looking at Facebook...
I would say the opposite. I would say that the time spent on Google is probably extremely accurate, at least the way that they're describing it, but the number is actually smaller than it should be, even when Google is providing it, and that the user number is the one that's flawed, but it's not incorrect numbers, it's just numbers that Google is using in a way that benefits them.
So the people who are here who know how to use things spend a lot of time here. So clearly if you know what you're doing here, and they get you addicted and you come back for more, then they've got a very powerful platform. The problem is getting the platform to a larger number of people and getting them fluent in the platform. And that's the trick.
Yeah. Yes, and also, just a second, Anthony, when I go to start a Hangout, okay, you can see who's on. And I can tell you that half the people that are listed are not actually on. They have left their phone app logged in. My phone app is logged in right now. And I'm also logged in on my desktop. So,
but they're not talking about the stream there, I don't think. So
if they're tracking time, then I've been logged in for 12 days because that's the last time I shut down my phone.
And it really depends on how explicitly they are using the number. If you are logged on to, if you're in your stream but you haven't touched it in 5 minutes, Google could very well be ignoring your data because they know that you're inactive. Like if you're using an instant messenger and you've been inactive for 15 minutes, you get grayed out. You're like still there, but it's grayed out because you're idle. And I don't think that Google is manipulating the data so badly that they would count someone that has been inactive for 15 hours.
They're surely not doing that. I agree, Anthony, because they have a compelling business reason to not lie to themselves, but also to promote the very best numbers that they can, and legitimately get away with promoting. But I do wonder. You raised an interesting question earlier about are they, or it seems they're not reporting the number of Hangout hours. And I think that would be really interesting data that would show a much more compelling case for the Google Plus product in totem.
And those numbers are like almost more important because I would say that the people are better communicating with each other.
Well, they're much more actively engaged if they're in a Hangout.
But here's the thing, guys, you're omitting the most likely reason why they're not releasing those numbers. The most likely reason is because the numbers indicate that nobody is using Hangouts?
No, it's
a very small percentage.
First of all,
or they're in private Hangout.
There's a way to do it. If you look at someone's videos and you sort by most popular, then you'll see there's one that has 1,200 views, and then there's a Hangout, and then there's another one below it that has 1,100 views. So you know that Hangout is in between 11 and 1,200 views. So there's a back way to figure it out. But clearly, Alan's right. If these numbers were rosy, then they would highlight
them
at I/O.
The number of views of the Hangout video after the fact. That's a YouTube statistic.
Right. I'm not even talking about YouTube stuff.
The views afterward are 100 times more than the live views.
I understand, but they don't count as Google Plus statistics. They count as YouTube statistics.
Oh, I'd say it's both. I mean, it's a
Google could break that out. Google could break it out.
They could, but I'll bet they're not counting it as a Google Plus statistic.
It's a PR thing. I mean, any good numbers they release, any bad numbers, we don't comment on numbers. I would do the same thing. You would, Michael.
But I just want to touch on, before we move from the subject, about how it's the Wall Street Journal, right, that made the article?
Yes.
How they're complaining that Google is forcing people to have Google Plus accounts if they have a Google account, which
that's just preposterous.
It's an absolutely ridiculous opinion, because if a company provides multiple services, I want to have a single login to all of those services. If I'm using Yahoo Search, which you don't have to log into, but if I'm using Yahoo Mail and I'm using, I can't even think of another Yahoo service, but if I'm using...
They launched Yahoo TV. I kid you not, last week.
Oh my God.
They did. I meant to put it in the document. I forgot, but they said...
Let Alan finish, then give us a quick synopsis of that. Go ahead. Anthony, go ahead. Give us a quick finish.
If I'm using multiple services from the same company, you better damn well be providing me the same damn login.
But Anthony,
let me just finish.
No, I'm agreeing with you, but come on.
But my other point is, you use Facebook to log into outside services. You use Google to log into outside services. You even use Yahoo to log into some outside services. So I'm using other companies to log into outside services, but I can't use the same company to log into the same services? Come on.
Anthony, you missed the true irony here and the true hypocrisy here. Okay? The Wall Street Journal is making people log in to the Wall Street Journal to read the article.
Facebook.
Through Facebook.
Oh, that's an epic. That's epic. Yeah, that's okay. That's the way to end this topic.
And with that, we'll move on.
Okay, so at 2/26/19, Google Play will hit 1 million apps in June, probably sooner than the iOS store. So this is from VentureBeat, and here's the lead. I think we're well past the time when the number of apps is the defining factor of a mobile ecosystem, at least if you're Apple or Google, perhaps not so much if you're Windows Phone or RIM. Research in Motion, the BlackBerry maker in Canada.
No, I can tell you what's going to happen next. Apple, at their next rollout, is going to talk about how they have more quality apps
over quantity.
Or more apps that are tailored for the tablet experience, and how Google's tablet experience is really just an oversized phone experience.
I got to tell you, Alan, I think they might do that because they're not innovating so much now. They're improving on Steve Jobs' innovations. But I think that this first sentence is right on the money, that the number of apps isn't going to be the big thing. It's going to be about the UI. And frankly, the early Android versus early iPhone, there was a gap, but now I don't think there is. Even Chris Pirillo, who's a big Apple fan, and on this show argued with Oleg about, Apple, and Oleg was defending Android. But he had a Note 2 and was comparing it to the iPhone 5. And he said, really, it's not a quality difference. It's just, that's the biggest thing. What are you used to? Are you used to the Android ecosystem and Google, or are you used to iOS and the iPhone? That's the big determining factor. There's not a difference in ability or quality now. Both have strengths and weaknesses.
We had a size debate many years ago. The last
I think
time
that was
Pam. Yeah. Between Google and the then lead search engine at Yahoo. And for a while, they were going back and forth about who indexed more pages, who had, the more relevant search results, and so forth and so on. And eventually, Yahoo proved that they had more pages indexed. And Google kind of said, yeah, well, it's not just about who has more, it's who has better. And the war ended. Right after that, you never heard anybody talk about who was indexing more of the web. All you heard them talking about is who was providing a better search experience. You'll notice that between Bing and Google, neither of them are talking about who has more. They're talking about who does it better. I think we're going to see the same thing shake out in the apps world within the next year.
I think it's tit for tat, and they're both going to improve up and down. They're going to steal each other's features. If McDonald's comes out with a better French fry, then we'll try to duplicate it at Burger King. I think it's what you're used to, and it's marketing, and it's.
I think they're going to just drop the whole numbers business soon because it's going to become a non-issue soon.
Anybody else want to weigh in on this before we move?
I have one quick thing to add. This question about the number of apps is always huge when a new platform comes into being. It was true when the AS400 was introduced in IBM. It was certainly true when the System 360 was introduced. And these things, there's a sort of a critical mass of applications that you have to get to before you can be one of the meaningful players. Once you get to that hurdle, then I think you're right. It doesn't matter if one has more than the other. You can talk about quality over quantity at that point. But there's a gate, and you got to get beyond the gate before you can be a real player.
That's true, but those were mainly niche. The 360 and the AS400 were mainly they were niche. They were business, and there was a lot of custom apps, right?
Niche.
Did you finally? No, I mean they weren't like something a regular homeowner would buy on a billion quantity scale.
Not.
They were expensive.
At a time when there were no home motor computers.
But did you finally, Michael? Now you have finally recently upgraded to the AS400, right?
No, I've been on the AS400 for a long time.
We've got a couple of quick comments that I want to hit, and then we'll move on. From George Cozy, the number of apps means nothing. If the number of apps in the store is over 100,000, what matters is quality. And Corey tries to back up by saying Android is tightening the app screening process to sort the trashy apps out. I'll believe it when I see it. I think Android's got a long way to go on some of that. So moving on, Dan. What's next on our list?
My final comment on that whole thing, Alan, is a year or two ago, it wasn't uncommon for me to see something that would be on the iPhone but not Android. And it was frustrating. But now I'm seeing that less and less. I'm seeing iPhone and Android versions. So that's a good thing. So related, not related at all. Now my pen's dying. 231.40. This is so you guys can click right to the topics and not hear us bloviate about the boring stuff. Okay, this is pretty interesting. This really isn't. This is just of note, and I thought if you guys wanted to weigh in on this, Nancy Pelosi, the former Speaker of the House, now the minority leader or Democratic leader in the House of Representatives, they had a record number in both chambers of women, and so they arranged for a group picture of all the women congressmen and members of the U.S. House of Representatives on the steps of the Capitol, and 4 members didn't make it. So
they made it. They were late.
They were late, but they didn't make it for that picture. So they took a second picture with just the 4, and then Nancy Pelosi's staff photoshopped them in to the back, and they what's funny, I have a personal thing in this. It's interesting. So they photoshopped in the back, and then she emailed it to reporters, and there's no conspiracy here. She, with the email of the photo, she said, here's the photoshopped version with the 4 additional members. And they were just, here's, so you can have all of them in there. And you can get, here's the names from left to right, front row. And the Poynter Institute and a lot of reporters took a step back, because you would never in a newspaper print a photoshopped image like that. You know what I mean? You would never not have an actual image. You might, whatever, like when we print a black and white picture, we lighten it because you get what's called a dot gain, but that's technical. So you have to lighten it, but you don't Photoshop things in there unless you do it deliberately for humorous effect or, to make a graphic or something, but it's transparent. And she was transparent. It was just interesting. And so then I posted it, and I said, I cannot wait for someone to make a meme or something. I said, I can't wait for the Photoshop memes, right? And then one guy said, this is just for you, Dan McDermott, or, especially for you or something. And he had the photo, and he put Santa Claus, and he had Gollum from Lord of the Rings, all, gathered with the Congress. It was hysterical. Like, I don't know, Elvis or Batman, just several characters. It was great. And so I posted it, and I said, yay, the first meme. And I sent it, then I tweeted it. I don't know who shared it. I sent it to Jeff Jarvis and Ron Fournier from National Journal, and a buddy of mine from Politico, James Holman. And I don't know who tweeted it, but I kept seeing pop, so-and-so retweeted, when I said, here's an early draft of the Nancy Pelosi group photo is my caption. And then I linked to the post, right? And it kind of went mini viral on Twitter. And then NPR did a story about the photo and said there's already a meme out there, and they linked to this guy's post. So I was all excited. I got this guy some attention. It was pretty funny. If I did, I don't know. Maybe somebody else saw, I don't know. But I was, I guess, an enthusiastic supporter. So that was fun. And I'm sure there'll be more memes. But do you guys think, again, there's no conspiracy here. She sent the picture out, photoshopped, just to say, here are the extra, we don't want them left out. And she admitted it freely, right? So it's not a conspiracy at all. But is there any ethical issue with this? As long as it's, I don't know. I wouldn't have done that. but I don't think it's evil or anything. What do you guys think?
Since everyone is speaking up at once,
it's not.
I think the transparency is good, but I think it's completely kind of missing the point about what the problem is. The problem is, in some ways it's that, Congress can't even get its act together to get a group photo.
Yeah. And it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing that the brand new Congress women, I guess they were all women, right? That was the point. They couldn't be bothered to be there on time. It's just, I would have said it would be better not to place the photo than it was to Photoshop the photo and pretend that everyone had been. I know that she didn't exactly pretend. She didn't hide it. It was transparent. But the point was to publish in newspapers all over the country that all of these women had lined up for a photograph together. I don't know.
I mean, thinking that newspapers would print it and just like keep the secret is the most absurd thing. I don't blame them for being late. I don't know if they're brand new members. I mean, can you imagine running for Congress, Michael, and all of a sudden you're there, you're overwhelmed with all this stuff, and it's your second or third day, and you don't know what the hell you're doing. You may not even know where to go. You know what I mean? Your staff's new, perhaps. So I forgive that. That they're,
Capitol, I'm there. I'm not late. I'm there on time, dressed as pretty as I know how to be, with my hair right. I don't miss that opportunity.
Michael, I've noticed that you're pretty and your hair's always right. By the way, I just wanted to. Your effort is not lost on me.
It was lost on Nancy Pelosi, though, I'm afraid.
Oh my God. We have we're approaching the latter hours. All right. Any final thoughts on this giant conspiracy? I just thought it was funny. I thought it was interesting. It's something that hadn't come up before.
It's not a conspiracy.
I'm pretty sure they have photoshopped pictures of Congress before on this.
Oh, sure, but this was unique. That she would. There was no secret. It wasn't like that thing where who was it? It was Katie Couric, one of the magazines when she got the ill-fated anchor spot at CBS News. They thinned her up on the cover, and she said, "That's not me. I mean, I'm flattered, but I wish I looked like that." But or whatever she said.
Yeah, and I'm surprised you didn't make analogies to Soviet Union photos of leaders standing on the Kremlin reviewing parade, mysteriously disappearing over time.
Or Brezhnev, I think get it back inside out of the sun, the wax is melting toward the latter days, and that famous picture with Mubarak, where he was walking behind Obama in reality, but they photoshopped it to put him in front of Obama on the front page of the state newspaper in Egypt. I mean, just crazy stuff. But this was, it was an honest mistake, I think. But I just thought it was interesting and noteworthy. So anyway, at
Dan, while you're recording the time, I just wanted to point out a couple of comments that we had on unrelated subjects.
Okay, sure.
George Cozy wants to know if you flashed your Galaxy Note at us yet, and I would respond to George, yes, he's flashed it at least once, sleekly profiling it. And Margie also urged you to show the note.
That was the Vanna White pose that he did earlier in this show.
Yes.
No kidding. It was like...
Yeah, what I'm going to do...
It's large. Look at how large it is.
I even made a Pam...
We're back to a size issue again.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll actually... Here, nobody talk, because it's a delay. This is actually this is the show you're watching here.
Look at how large it is.
I even made a Pam...
We're back to a size issue again.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll actually... Here, nobody talk, because it's a delay. This is actually this is the show you're watching here. This is my beautiful Samsung Galaxy Note 2.
That's enough of a shout out for it.
Yeah, it's available in fine stores everywhere.
I want to know how much Samsung is paying you every week.
No kidding.
I should get some sort of, remuneration. I don't know.
Stop pretending.
Hey, what's that word, Anthony? What's that word, Anthony? No, this is a money-sucking hole.
Remuneration.
Remuneration. Okay, so did you have more comments, or are we good?
Nope, that's it. Well,
As you mock my beautiful phone out of jealousy.
Margie wanted to point out, give a reason why some of the women didn't show up on the steps of Congress.
Duh.
Okay.
But I think we're ready to move on.
Okay, so the next topic is, this is great. This guy, I think he was in a cab, I forget. Some guy obtained his phone and did not return it. And the guy was his iPhone. Why anyone would steal an iPhone? I mean, if it was an Android, I could understand. But anyway, so that was a dig just then. I don't know if you caught that.
Greg Shipp probably stole it.
Yeah, probably. So anyway, so somebody steals his phone, basically, or retains possession, unauthorized possession. And he's some moron. And so the dude who actually had the phone had logged into some dating service, eCupid or whatever. So the guy who stole the phone is getting on it. I'll use my Note 2 as an example for illustrative purposes, like, ESPN or C-SPAN or the business one. So anyway, so he's on the phone and he's like chatting up girls, but it's tied to his desktop version, right? So the guy, despite his, grieving over the loss of his phone, is also, trying to get laid. So he's checking on the eCupid site, and he discovers messages back and forth from the thief to random girls, and the thief's using his profile picture. So he creates a fake profile of a female and starts flirting with the dude and arranges a date. So the thief is so stupid, he doesn't realize, like, he doesn't actually look like the profile picture on the profile, right? So he shows up at the house expecting to, do what you would do on a blind date with someone who would agree to meet you on the phone. And he has a hammer, and the guy knocks on the door, and then the owner of the phone comes up behind him with a hammer, and he says, give me my freaking phone. I may be paraphrasing his actual remarks. Give me my phone. And then the guy freaks out because he's got the hammer right at his head, and he gives him the phone, and then the guy, the owner of the phone, hands the thief $20 and sends him on his way. So I don't know why he handed him $20, except like when a cop says, I could give you 17 tickets, but I'm just going to give you 2, so you don't want to get really angry. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. It reminds me of the story of the lady whose camera got stolen, and she had, what is it called, a MiFi card? That's it's like an SD card, but it also has Wi-Fi capabilities. So when you come home, you set your camera down on the counter, you make a cup of coffee, pee, whatever, and your camera automatically is uploading to your Flickr account or whatever services you subscribe to. Picasa would be a nice option. So this one lady got her a camera stolen, and the thieves were taking pictures of themselves, not realizing that these pictures were all getting uploaded to this lady's account. So she had like beautiful high-res photographs of the thieves. So she went to the cops, and they caught the thieves because of this. So I don't know if this really. It was just sort of interesting. I don't know if anyone wants to add anything, or are you leaving, Michael? What's going on?
I'm waving to Monica's friend.
Oh, okay. Anyone have any comments on this? Sort of.
I think it's fantastic. I mean, it's another case of, it almost belongs in the Darwin Awards, that the people are so stupid that this is what happens. He steals a guy's phone and then doesn't realize that it's a smartphone and it might be connected to lots of other things, and then he goes in and pretends to be the guy. It's not even like he set up his own profile on the phone. He must have looked at the guy's picture and decided that guy was a lot cuter than the thief. So he went ahead and tried to lift his profile to get euphemistically called a date.
Yeah, I think the guy really should have completed his rocket science degree, I'm thinking.
Yeah, because he was obviously at least a junior in his pursuit of that degree.
Yeah, he had some game. He was a contender, I think he works at Microsoft now. Just kidding. And yes, that was a dig. It was an unfair dig. Okay. Okay. Next up. This is a fun story. I apologize, but trust me, you'll like it because you'll be able to skip.
I think you need to redefine fun.
Okay. President Obama signed the fiscal cliff bill. He was in Hawaii, and he called, or whatever communications device they use, and all the media outlets report that he signed the fiscal cliff legislation. But he didn't sign it. An AutoPen signed it. Now, an AutoPen is a machine that physically has a pen, and they put the paper down, and it mimics his signature because they literally have an entire department that sends out letters from the president. Congratulations on the 100th anniversary of your Girl Scout troop. Happy 50th anniversary. All those things. And obviously Barack Obama cannot personally do that. He's like, running 2 wars and stuff. So he's a little busy. But
he's the Messiah.
Now, the Constitution says, he has to sign the bill. And the way the procedures work now and protocol and precedence is there actually is a physical bill. It's one single copy that's embossed and beautiful. And a guy walks it over. They present it to him, and he actually physically signs it or vetoes it, or just puts it away, and then it just becomes law naturally. The pocket veto is what that's called. So anyway, it's an advancement, but it's no different than him from Hawaii calling and saying, launch the nuclear weapons or whatever. I mean, the car and the plane and wherever he is basically a portable White House. So on the one hand, it's interesting because George W. Bush, I don't think he ever signed a bill with the AutoPen, but I think this is the 3rd or 4th time that President Obama has done it. So you guys have any thoughts? I mean, this is kind of it's like the Photoshop picture with Pelosi. There's no conspiracy here. It's all out in the open.
So
but it's interesting. What do you think?
I don't have a problem with him using an AutoPen to sign, trivial dealings and whatnot, or even small-scale bills. But that this is coming up, and you go on vacation in Hawaii when one of the biggest, if not the biggest bill of your entire presidency is, coming across your desk. I think he needs to get his priorities straight. And I don't want to make this about,
So this issue suddenly came up.
No. It was about Congress not getting their crap together in time, and what's he going to do? Just wait and wait and wait? No.
Yes.
Well, he waited.
He's the president of the United States of America.
He's supposed to be there leading.
Yeah, no. He doesn't lead Congress.
I know that a lot of people complain about.
They basically gave him what he wanted that he asked for months ago.
I know that people complain all the time about various presidents, going to Camp David and whatnot, and going on vacation too much. I don't have a problem with that. If you want to be president and you can lead this country from wherever, and you can in this day and age, you can be wherever you want to be, as long as you're getting the job done.
Do you know what it costs to fly the president of the United States from Hawaii?
I don't care about that. I don't care
just
about
to
that,
sign a doc.
right?
I mean, it's 2013.
No,
he should have to physically.
Let's put some things in perspective.
He should not have been in Hawaii in the first place.
Let's put some things in historical perspective here. Okay? Let's remember who the first president was who flew an airplane out of the country. That was FDR. Let's remember why he was flying an airplane out of the country, and that's because he was talking to allies to discuss the war progress. Let's furthermore remember why some of the locations were picked where they were. They were specifically picked so that in case Congress actually passed something, Roosevelt could get on the plane and either fly back or have the bill flown out to him.
Right.
Okay? There are legitimate constitutional reasons why we require the president's signature on a bill. Now, what I hope the president has done, authorize the AutoPen to sign the official embossed legislation. fine, great. I think that's fine. I really don't care. I hope somebody was on a plane with a copy of the legislation out to him that he would sign in person, though.
Serious question, Alan. This will sound absurd, but serious question. Let's say you had a disabled president who had no hands.
I think you now start getting into the question of how would they sign legally anything?
Should they be able to verbally say it?
No,
I mean, you can sign an insurance agreement. That's a serious question. That's a legitimate question.
You can sign by an X. You've always been able, if you're not able to physically sign, you can make your mark.
And most people without hands can write with their feet.
Right.
I'm totally imagining, Pam. I'm imagining a signing ceremony. You know, I mean, come on.
No, seriously.
This is seriously. I'm serious. Like, I don't think it. Yeah, I don't think you have to be.
As a user with disabilities,
I don't think. No, I'm saying, like, I don't think you should have to physically sign it. I mean, I think it's 2013, and if you can, there are digital ways to do things. I mean,
yeah, but how do you get the digital signature if someone doesn't have a signature? And
if he can launch nuclear weapons from Hawaii, why can't he somehow through some authorized method? You know?
Yeah, it's not.
It's not the same thing. There is a specific process laid out in the Constitution for how these things are to be done. And frankly, even though signatures might be commonly acceptable today in electronic form, there is a nod that's appropriate to tradition. And the president had every reason to be in the country, in the city, nearby, helping to make the deal happen. If it was as crisis-oriented as everyone
he made the
wanted
deal
us to
happen.
believe,
Why should he have? Why should he have to be deprived of his, you know, the rest of his Christmas vacation to wait for a day or two for Congress to produce a fancy document so he can physically sign it? That's stupid.
Why
the
couldn't
president of the United States
be flown out to him?
True. At what expense?
I don't understand what this has to do with our tech show.
Margie
it doesn't.
Says politics.
We do what we want to talk about.
The president can have a vacation. Get over it.
What does Margie say?
Margie says money. Politics. Ew. The president can have a vacation. Get over it.
So she's fine with us discussing. She's not fine with us discussing politics unless it happens to agree with her.
No, I don't know. I mean, I think it's interesting. You know, just like the Nancy Pelosi thing. I just thought it was interesting that it's kind of a change.
We can close with the fact about the auto pen.
Huh?
Did you know that the auto pen has been in use since the early 1980s, and astronauts used to use the auto pen because they would get so many requests for their signature that NASA was like, just use the auto pen. So if you have an early, like, Challenger era signature from an astronaut, it's an auto pen.
Yeah, I got a dozen pictures from Ronald Reagan for our club or something when I was 18 in college. I thought it'd be cool, and I wrote the White House and they sent them. I'm sure that Ronald Reagan did not personally sit there, but obviously Alan's point's not lost. This is, a much more consequential bill involving, actually, billions and billions of dollars.
I would say even the question isn't so much whether he signed it or not. The question is, and I'm now reading from my copy of the Constitution, whether the bill was presented to him. The Constitution states that every bill which shall have passed the House of Representatives and the Senate shall, before it becomes a law, be presented to the President of the United States. If he approve, he shall sign it, but if not, he shall return it. So the question is, was the bill presented to him? Not whether he signed it or not.
I think it's interpretation. It was presented to him. Why can't he sign it and fax it back? The idea that the president and his traveling staff and the White House press corps should all have to stand around for 12, 24, 36, 48 hours waiting for Congress to deliver a pretty parchment document or whatever the heck it looks like. I don't know what it is. It's absurd.
What? The Constitution is not that complicated, but people like to make it complicated.
It's interpretation. It's reasonable interpretation. We have a right to freedom of speech. It doesn't specifically say freedom of the written word, freedom to broadcast on radio, freedom to
presented to just mean sign it. Right?
I think we should do War of the Worlds. in Hangout just to prove that we have the ability.
That would be pretty epic.
It would be epic.
We could have some drinks, you know, sound
I think
effects.
It would be totally epic. And
Craig
totally
would love
Monica
it.
to come up with that idea.
Yeah, that's actually that's not a crazy idea, Monica. I am pleasantly surprised. We adore each other, even though we fight like cats and dogs. But anyway, so I just thought it was interesting, and I think it's just, I think it's going to become more common because it just makes sense. There are times when, for example, if the president was negotiating a peace treaty, in this case, he was on vacation with his family, which I think is fine. He's a wonderful family, and he needs some rest and recoup, you know. But if he were, say, negotiating a peace between Israel and Palestine, or doing whatever overseas, then if all of a sudden there was some hurricane that hit, or whatever, a tornado hit, and they needed emergency legislation passed, he shouldn't have to fly his whole entourage and the press corps at a cost of probably $1 billion
They can fly the bill
back to
him.
Washington to physically sign it. Well, why should they have to do that? Why can't he just authorize it publicly through official channels and they use the auto pen? Why should they have to pay $100,000 to fly a piece of paper in 2013, Michael, to Hawaii? That's crazy. That's a waste of taxpayer resources.
No, I don't agree. There's a certain nod to the tradition of how these things have been done forever, and there's value in that ongoing tradition. That's partly what continues to support an established democracy, is the inherent traditions that we maintain. And that's one of them. It's a minor one, I recognize that. I'm not saying it's having separation of powers, but it's meaningful, and to disregard them completely, I think, is frivolous. And it was frivolous over a vacation that he could have taken earlier or taken a few days later with no consequence to his family.
Why should he be a victim of Congress's inability to act? Why should
because he's the president of the United States of America.
And he didn't put forth a bill for 4 years, a budget for 4 years.
I think he should be able to fax it with 2 witnesses.
Plenty of reasons why he's just as culpable as the Congress is in this point.
He should be able to fax it with just 2 witnesses. Your usual good judgment is being clouded by your antipathy for Barack H. Obama. Okay, are we good on that?
Yes.
We're good. Srik agrees with me.
We are well beyond good on that.
Okay, I got an e-reader question at 2:58. Okay, this is interesting. There was an article, is the e-reader revolution over just as it has begun? And they were discussing the fact that in 2007, the first Kindle came out, the first e-readers. There's the Kobo and the what's the one from Barnes & Noble? The Nook. And they delivered this wonderful experience where you could buy an ebook for, you know, $5, $10, some are free, some are $2, some are $20, and they're very convenient. They have a tremendous battery life because it's pretty much the initial ones were a single purpose device, so they didn't have to account for everything. They were low on battery power, so some of the Kindles I think go weeks without having to plug it in. So they were asking, is that revolution over just as it's caught on? Because for such a small amount of money, you can buy a full-featured tablet that has the Amazon Kindle app or the Google Play reader. In fact, I have as an example, I'm using this as a stopwatch to keep time when we start different topics, so you can click right on them, so you don't have to listen to our crazy topics. But so this is my Nexus 7, which was $250, but you could buy them for $200, and the Kindles now are like as cheap as $69. So here's the question. I was like, are we going to see the e-reader die in exchange for the full-featured tablet? So I asked an expert, my mom, who's 74 and is a big Kindle fan. She has the Kindle HD, and she has a high-end Kindle from a couple years ago, like a $400 or $500 Kindle, like the best one, with the WhisperNet and all that stuff. So I asked her, what do you think? And I think her Kindle HD is equivalent. Correct me if I'm wrong, Alan. It's equivalent in size to the Nexus 7, or is it a 10? Do you have anybody know? I don't know.
No, it's probably around the size of a 7.
Okay, so it's a smaller one.
I think most of the e-readers are all that kind of form factor.
In a smaller scale, comparing my Note 2, which is 5.5 inches, to my Nexus 7 is similar to comparing her Kindle HD to her full or her regular Kindle. And so she said she loves both. She loves watching. If she goes out, she'll bring her Kindle HD, the smaller one. She loves watching video on the Kindle HD. She's and then, but when she actually wants to curl up and read a book in bed or on the couch or whatever, then she prefers her full-fledged Kindle. And so I asked her the question. I said, well, you bought the Kindle first, then you bought the Kindle HD. If the Kindle were destroyed, lost, stolen, whatever, would you buy another one, or would you just stick with the Kindle Fire HD? And she said, no, I would absolutely buy a new Kindle. I just might not get the fancy one because so much, you can do on the Kindle Fire. But she likes that screen, that paper white, and the Kindle's a beautiful reader, no doubt. So I just wanted to see, what do you guys think? 2, 5, 10 years down the road, are is it all going to merge into one super? Because we're already seeing the phone, like this phone, which is just ridiculously big. Samsung gave it the unfortunate nickname, the phablet, phone and tablet hybrid, and so it's phablet,
it's
baby.
It's the worst.
It's the worst, yeah. But anyway,
ever.
You see, but it's true. The sentiment's real, because I used to take my Nexus 7 everywhere I went. If I was going out for a couple hours or whatever, I would take it. If I was going to sit at a Starbucks or have lunch or something by myself and no one to talk to, I would bring my Nexus 7. I would use my phone to create a mobile hotspot, and then I would use my Nexus 7 to browse. But now that I have the 5.5 inch one, I don't bring this out anymore, but I still do prefer reading a book. Like I'm reading Killing Lincoln now, and I'm reading it on, actually not that one, another book. I'm reading that one. It's a physical book, but I read on my Nexus 7. So what do you guys think? You want to weigh in on this? On it? I guess the question is the title of the article I'm referring to, and I apologize. My voice is almost gone because I have a cold or something. I don't know. The e-reader revolution.
And because we've been going at this for 3 hours.
3 hours. Wow.
Only 3 hours and 3 minutes. The e-reader revolution, is it over just as it has begun? Who wants to weigh on
this? No, absolutely not. Because, first of all, there are people that will never give up the paperbacks, the actual book. They want the book, the feel of the book. The Kindle, and I don't even have one of the nicer ones. I mean, I think a Kindle is a Kindle, but it's first of all, it's as close as to a book as you can get, because of the technology that they use and the crispness of it and such. But the other thing is, I can take my Kindle and fully charge it and go up to the cabin where, well, we used to have no power, and I don't have to worry about the battery power. If I bring up my tablet and I want to, go through an entire book, I'm gonna, destroy the battery life on it and probably not even get through the entire book before I finish it. But if I'm using my Kindle, I'm gonna, be the entire way through the book and then, onto another one and probably onto another one after that. So, I mean, battery life is a huge, concern. The other thing is, right here, I have 2 books, right? And these are heavy books.
What were those books? Put them back up.
They were post-secret books. But here's one of them.
Oh.
I mean, they're big, thick books, right? Well, and that's a bad example, but I mean, just the thickness of the book is really the example. Well, here, what is it? You get 1,000 of those books onto here. So, I mean, the comparison is just absurd. And the other thing that I like to always talk about when talking about the Kindle is, if you're the kind of person that buys, a new book every month, you're going to pay off the price of the Kindle because ebooks are cheaper by and large than the hard copies are.
Yeah, but none of the paperbacks, and they're not cheaper than the hard copy.
If you go to a used bookstore,
then
you can get super cheap books, or like if you do like what I do, I go to the library and I just get all the books that are sitting around and they want to get rid of.
But there's a lot of people that do not go and buy the used books. They buy the brand new books, and they're not necessarily doing it because they like, the new book over the used book. They're just doing it because it's more simple. And what is more simple than having one device where you go into the store using that device that you're going to use to read the object? You buy it. You don't even need Wi-Fi. At least mine does, and I think the newer ones do, because you have the the free 3G connection that the older Kindles have. I mean, I don't think you can compare it to the. I know you can't compare it to the to a full-fledged tablet. The other argument is that eye strain. If you reading a full-fledged colored display tablet for hours on end, you're going to have eye strain issues a long time before you have eye strain issues with an e-ink device.
Yeah. So I read both. I read traditional books. This is the one I just read, and I love, I read really fast. So see how densely spaced the text, it's all very closely packed. And when I'm reading on my e-reader,
you can make it any size you want virtually.
Yeah, but still, it's a small, I've got an Android device, and I'm still I read really fast, and I'm like tap, tap, tap. And it's really frustrating to me, at least with this, it takes a while, and
that's the thing.
I still read really fast.
If you use a small device, you've got to enlarge the font to where you're constantly, getting carpal
Well, and here's the
tunnel.
problem. I have very bad vision, so I have to have the text be big in order to read it, because I have a lot of vision issues. So in order to have the text be big, I've got to. That's part of the issue with the e-reader.
We like that because we're all very unattractive, and so the only reason you join our Hangout is because you can't really see.
Well, that's why sometimes I put my face up to hang out, because I
thought it
really,
was when you were yelling at me for something
text.
I did. Some perceived slight.
I know it's weird.
You got nothing on Allen and me and Pam and Sarik and Anthony as far as weird. Yeah, I think this is a author of Huckleberry Finn.
Twain.
Mark Twain moment. The rumors of my demise are greatly exaggerated. We'll see how it shapes out. It's interesting because, the e-readers are getting better, and then some of the stuff and they're pushing them, like Amazon's pushing them, where you can start a thing on, you can start an Audible book, and then you pause it in your car, and then you get home, and the Kindle remembers where you left the audio version. You can read the text version. So all that stuff. Okay, final topic before we get to our closing comments is at 3:09:06 is, as I click, Al Jazeera. I posted about this, and there was some mean comments that obviously were coming from folks who had never actually watched Al Jazeera English. Al Jazeera is in the news because they bought Current TV, which was a cable channel founded by Al Gore, former vice president, and another guy who I can't remember. And they have had 40,000 people. They were in 40,000 homes. And so the big problem, because we try to start a cable channel.
Put that in perspective, Dan.
40 million. I'm sorry, 40 million.
No, I think you were actually closer on 40,000.
No, Current TV had 40,000 viewers, but they were in 40 million cable system homes and cable systems. They wanted the footprint. So that's the big distinction there. The best show would get like 40,000, which is nothing. My newspapers get more than that.
It's so far down on the list of channels that it's hard to find.
MSNBC at 3 a.m. gets better ratings than Current at prime time. I mean, it was a disaster. But CNN's had problems, and they got a new head, and I wish them well.
CNN didn't have problems like that, though.
No. And any of these guys, like O'Reilly's, like the #1 cable news show, he gets his 4 million viewers, but 3 to 4 million. But that pales in comparison to what the lowest broadcast network gets. It's still, the legacy media is still in charge.
Yeah, but let's be honest here. The paint drying network could get more viewers than Current TV got.
Shark Week, someone can correct me in the comments, but Shark Week on Discovery Channel can get like 30 million. I mean, the actual networks get real big numbers compared to, these the news shows. So anyway, what happened was Al Jazeera bought Current TV to get those cable footprints. They paid north of $500 million, which is, if you were trying to buy Current to keep Current in its current form, pardon the double usage there, in the same way that like AOL bought Huffington Post to kind of keep it intact, but just to monetize it, to own it and grow, it would not be worth that. But they wanted those channels because my newspapers approached Comcast to get a cable channel, and they laughed us out of the room. They said, we don't do that, and you have to pay, and it'd be like minimum $50,000 a year for a very small market. And then and Fox News Channel, when they started, they actually paid cable broadcasters to carry them. And then when they got popular, as they are now they get paid. Even Oprah Winfrey, who was, I would say, the #1 personality on television when she had her daytime talk show, she had to, when she wanted to start her cable network, she actually had to buy another network to get the footprint. She couldn't just announce, I'm starting a cable network, and the cable companies all said, oh, we're so excited, we're going to carry you. She actually had to pay money to buy another network to get those channels because they're scarce. So that's kind of the background. And but there's so many folks who think that Al Jazeera English is, burning American flags and, kill the infidels. And it's not. It's largely, it's not the most thrilling or entertaining network. It's like somewhere in between CNN on a bad day and C-SPAN when nothing's happening. But they have bureaus in all kinds of places like Timbuktu and all over Africa and the Middle East.
Timbuktu is not a great example right now since there's a war going on there. But
I mean, does ABC News have a bureau in Timbuktu? No, that's what I'm saying.
ABC couldn't even spell Timbuktu.
I think
ABC is lucky that
they could use Google. They could use Apple Maps. Oh, just kidding. And they would end up in Islamabad. But anyway, so that's the groundwork. They bought it. A lot of people are pissed off. And immediately after they purchased it, I mean, within hours, Time Warner Cable shut down Current from their lineup. So,
yeah, but do you know why?
So
let's be honest. Why Time Warner Cable shut down Current from its lineup? It's because there are 40,000 viewers to the stupid channel, and they wanted to kick them out so they could put the paint drying network on, which was going to have more viewers.
You think that's Al? Hold on, I'm not going to let that go, Alan. That's BS.
It's not BS.
They didn't do it 3 hours after the purchase for that reason. Come on.
Yeah, they did.
The reason they did it was because they had a contract with whoever owns Current TV, and now it's this new company, and now they want a new deal from this new company.
Well,
here's the thing.
The contract gave them the out. And you think Current TV didn't go to Time Warner Cable before the deal was negotiated? No. They went to all of the people who were carrying them and said, hey, this deal's about to go down. Just wanted to let you know. Oh, and by the way, don't forget our contract clause that says you have to carry it, neener. Except they didn't in Time Warner Cable's case.
The fact of the matter is, it's of no shock that Time Warner dropped them. What is surprising is that Dish and DirecTV and all the other major carriers didn't drop them. in a
I think they couldn't
attempt to get a new contract.
They couldn't. It was a different contract situation. There were 40 million roughly total. Time Warner is about 12 million, so they went from 40 to 28 million. And the other agreements were in place, and they couldn't switch it.
Do you want to know why we know that Time Warner Cable isn't dropping Current TV because it's owned by Al Jazeera? Do you want to know why we know this? Because they're currently carrying Al Jazeera. You can watch Al Jazeera on many Time Warner networks.
They're only, I think, in 2 cities in the United States, Alan.
Yes, but New York City is one of them, and it's carried on Time Warner Cable.
Yeah, but I think literally it's in 2 markets. It's in D.C.
And literally one of them is
2 or 3
Time Warner
markets,
Cable.
D.C. and New York. But they're not, I mean, I just think it's interesting that they are, I think we need, I don't think there's, it's not like they're burning American flags, you know. It's largely Americans, and they're going to, and they said they're going to base in New York, and it's going to be mainly out of New York programming with Americans doing it.
Have absolutely no merit whatsoever. The fact of the matter is that Time Warner and Dish and DirecTV are extremely aggressive with their contracts with all their networks. When Dish and DirecTV are dropping all of the channels from, you know, Viacom or Viacom or wherever you say the company's name, because that they can't work out a deal that is extremely beneficial to those you know, satellite and cable companies. How can you get into a fit when they're dropping these major networks when they drop a small, tiny, insignificant network?
Right, and that's it. That's why Time Warner Cable dropped them, because Current TV is a nobody.
If it was the Jewish network, would they have dropped it, Alan?
For the most part, the Jewish networks aren't even carried on broadcast; they're only carried on pay-per-view.
If a Jewish-owned company bought Current the other day, would Time Warner Cable have announced 3 hours later that they were dropping it?
If they could politically drop it.
Answer my question, Alan.
Yes, they would have. Yes, they would have.
If the Vatican channel.
Yes, they would have.
I mean,
it all comes down to the outlash of your
Microsoft
customer base.
No.
It all comes down to the outlash of your customer base. If the customer base reacts differently from a Jewish channel to this channel, is completely insignificant. It's how your customers react. If your
I just hate when people judge something when they haven't watched it.
Then it gets dropped. If
I agree with you there, Dan.
It doesn't get dropped.
I agree with you there, Dan. Now, to wrap this up, I want to point out something to actually like bring this back into the subject of our show. One of the cable networks that was carrying Current TV, and I assume they're still going to be carrying Current TV, is Google Fiber. So the people in Kansas City are going to be able to watch Al Jazeera, hopefully.
And they're probably jumping up and down.
I'm sure that all 3 of them are excited.
I'm sure they're going to tune in. The last thing on this is
actually related to that though. One of the interesting things I did hear is that because of the agreement that they're now going to be on Current, they now have to stop their web broadcast.
That's what I was going to say. That and the fact that important to note is that Time Warner did, after the brushback from the press about their decision to immediately, literally not only say they weren't going to carry it, but actually cut off Current. I mean, they actually, like, you can't watch. They shut it down within hours of the announcement, which was a clear reaction to the purchaser, in my opinion. But Alan disagrees. But they also said we will be afterward. I think it was the New York Times asked them, and they said that they would be open to the new Al Jazeera, because they're creating a new thing, which will be partly Al Jazeera English and largely based out of New York. Their new channel, and they did say that they're gonna, I guess in 90 days, Alan, they're gonna stop streaming, and they're a big hit. Especially, they're sort of like CNN. They're straight news. They're not propaganda like MSNBC and Fox News are, and so nobody watches them.
I would say they're not straight propaganda, but they certainly present the world news from their perspective.
as do CNN and MSNBC. And
yes, I'm
remember
not saying
CNN said you can't say foreigner, you have to say international. Ted Turner banned the word foreigner.
I'm not saying other news organizations don't. I'm just saying that they definitely give their perspective on it, and that's a good thing, in my opinion. Okay.
Yeah, because we don't want the First Amendment to have an asterisk. But they did say that really the tech issue on this is that they're going to stop streaming Al Jazeera English on the web, which is because there's more money. I really wish I could have gotten Craig in on this because he's all about old and new media, Craig Shipp. But they're going to shut down their streaming on the web, which is sad. I think I like more voices. You know, I remember I beat up on Iran all the time, but to be fair, when the reason a lot of them don't like us is because we basically overthrew their leader and installed a pro-Western, the Shah. And our CIA guys literally like overthrew their government and installed a pro-Western leader. And he was a brutal leader. And I'm no fan of Ahmadinejad at all. And I think that those people are living in the Middle Ages and they're evil. And they because of the way they treat their people, especially their women, and people who don't believe as they do. But you do yourself a disservice when you don't understand the history of why some of those guys hate our guts. And I think that it's better to have more voices than to censor them. Even the First Amendment exists to protect unpopular speech, not so you can praise your mom and apple pie. And this is, I just didn't like that whole 3 hours later they're announcing, we're dropping current because, the Muslims bought them. And I'm not a Muslim, and I'm certainly no fan of radical Islam extremists, but that doesn't represent all Muslims by any stretch, any more than David Koresh represents all Christians. And I just can barely speak now, but because of my cold, not because I'm emotional. But I don't know. Those are my. I just thought it was something that you guys should be able to weigh in. Any final thoughts on that, and then we'll go to the general final thoughts. All right, we got out of that easy, Alan.
Oh yeah, really.
I thought I'd get screamed at.
It's almost 9 o'clock my time. It's almost midnight your time. So I think we're just kind of.
Pam, do you have any final thoughts
waiting to be done
on this wonderful Google Plus week? Anything at all or related to tech or whatever you want to talk about?
No, it's actually been a pretty good week. I haven't had any issues at all. It's been just a typical kind of slow Google Plus week. It's all good.
It was a slow news week, and we managed to somehow
spend 3+ hours on it.
Exactly. So, M. Monica, tell us how would you like to close Google Plus week this week?
I think they took a good first step, although a very small first step, with that little baby step with basically being like, that little blip that we saw at the start where they were basically redirecting you saying, do you want to turn up your notifications? Nice try, but you need a much bigger fix. A much, much, much bigger fix.
Also, remember to put it in perspective, all of us have a not insignificant number of followers.
Right. We do.
We are the 1% or whatever, right? Most of the users may have 5, 10, 20, 30 followers. And so it does make sense when you put it in that perspective. They could have a better algorithm to choose who that gets that notification.
It makes sense.
For those entry-level users who came in July and posted a picture and haven't posted, maybe, I think that's what they were going after,
it's not just that.
It makes sense to give these people a tool, not to give them a crappy tool. They gave them a crappy tool instead of actually fixing the damn problem.
Well, it's like this.
You should go to slumber parties, Alan.
They didn't give him a tool. They gave him like a twig. It's not even like a little. It's not even a utilitarian, like. It's not even a very useful tool. But here's the thing, like Google Plus is a hybrid of Twitter and Facebook. Like you can share very powerfully to the public, or like what I was saying last week is that they need to make it more powerful to share to your friends and family. So like they need to like suggest to people that they should make a circle that's friends and family and turn that all the way up so that if you want to share to your friends and family and have it notify you, you can do that as well. Because what I see on Facebook is there's a lot of people who want to be able to share privately. And some people will never be power users that want to share public all the time. That just won't take off with a large percentage of the population. And that's why a lot of people want to remain on Facebook. They want to share with the people they already know. We are people that are comfortable sharing public, but that may not take off with a large percentage of people. So they should have a contingency plan that Google Plus could work for people that want to use it in different ways.
Monica, you have to remember, when it came out, what we were hearing a lot from Google is they were surprised at how many public posts there were, because in all of their dog fooding tests, everything was happening privately. So I think they're still confused about how to deal with any of this, and they're still just throwing spaghetti against the wall.
But what is more powerful, having a platform that works in two different ways for those who want to use it for public and those who also want to share private, or just having a platform that just works in one way? I'm saying that if you could figure out both, I mean, it's sad that it won't work. You know, and I still do see some people trying to share limited here. Unfortunately, it falls flat. But if they could work the circle so that people can be notified when their limited posts are shared, it'd be more powerful.
You know, Monica, your comment earlier made me think of that phrase. You know, if all you have is a hammer, all the world looks like a nail. I think that's different in Google's case, where it's if all you have is a Swiss Army knife, all the world looks like a nail. It's
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's pretty deep.
It's terribly deep for midnight, Dan, on a Friday night. Let's keep going.
Anthony in Rochester, New York.
Think about it. Maybe you'll get it by Monday.
Tell us about your Google Plus week, Anthony.
Well, I found this entire FTC Google thing incredibly interesting from relatively early on. And I think that the result is probably the way that it should have been. I strongly feel that the result was not going to be the way that it should have been until some congressmen, you know, tapped the FTC on the shoulder and were watching. On a personal note, I got a brand new soccer jersey, the United States women's team.
Is this the soccer jersey we've been hearing about for like 2 weeks now?
That's awesome.
It's, I don't know if you guys can see it.
Is that in honor of Nancy Pelosi's picture? Let me blue screen you here.
She's not on the soccer team.
Yeah, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. But it's a
it says Pelosi across the back.
It's a Tobin Heath jersey, and I guess what's interesting about the reason that I chose Tobin Heath is Abby Wambach is actually from Rochester, and if you know anything about U.S. soccer, Abby Wambach is the biggest star of that team, and I think Abby Wambach is absolutely awesome. And also Alex Morgan is absolutely awesome, who actually played in Rochester and is probably the second most popular player on the team. I chose Tobin Heath because I think that she's an extremely talented and young individual, and I think that she has an incredibly bright future on the team. And yeah, I like extremely multi-talented people, and basically I like representing the United States soccer women's team because obviously they're a very talented group of women. but also just being able to wear a a piece that represents this country. Because you always see these stupid T-shirts with these American flags, and invariably they're very tacky. But I think that this is very untacky, and that's why I chose it. I think that this is actually the United States away jersey. I think that the home jersey is actually kind of tacky, so I picked this one. So I'm actually very excited about it, and want to tell everyone that we're listening. So
that's awesome. I swear to God, I bet you could do 90 minutes on a soccer jersey.
Well, but the thing is,
Dan, you do 90 minutes on an auto pen.
Oh yeah,
the auto pen
with the visual aids.
It's fun. It's nice when you can pick something that is obviously not not just the popular thing. The U.S. women's team is extremely popular, but I'm picking a women's sport, and I'm a guy, and this is actually a men's jersey that has been customized with the female's name on the back of it, but because obviously I'm not going to go around wearing a shirt that's been cut for a woman, but
you should get a bright pink
obviously
one.
I'm not doing this because it's a popular thing to do. I'm not picking the most popular player that happens to be from my hometown. I'm picking a different player. I'm picking a female that obviously men are not usually going to gravitate towards female stars, and I think it's it's cool that I can pick something that's relatively unique.
A buddy of mine had a party, and a friend of his had a T-shirt, the brightest pink you've ever seen. Right? It was this tall, masculine dude has his bright pink T-shirt, and it said, "Don't laugh. This is your girlfriend's shirt," or something like that. Oh man, that's awesome. Yeah, I think it's cool. I think an athlete. Yeah, I mean, you're making a statement.
I think that these
highlighting something that
have do this country extremely proud by going in year after year after year after year. Actually, the United States is one of only 2 countries that FIFA has ever ranked number 1. Germany is the other country, and they've spent 1 period at the number 1 spot.
And anything we can do to get women's sports more attention is phenomenal.
Exactly.
Because it all goes to the men's sports. It's not
when you have an extremely quality product, and the U.S. does have an extremely quality product, is proved by the ranking consistently. But even just in the women's leagues, even though the women's leagues have had a very difficult time getting traction, they keep on trying, and I think that people like me need to do everything that we can to encourage them to keep on trying.
I thought it was cool. I don't know if any of y'all are golf fans, but I remember when the leading female golfer competed. I don't know, was in the U.S. Open or whatever major tournament it was, and she didn't make the final cut. But it was a big news story, and I thought it was really cool.
I think that actually happened in Rochester, where Wegmans, which was the title sponsor, chose to use their ability as the title sponsor to put her in the tournament. And I don't know if she did well or not, but
she did okay. But I mean, it's like in football. I mean, I don't care how big you are. A giant male football player is going to overpower, your. I mean, but I thought it was. I was surprised that in golf there would be a gender disparity. To be honest, I could see in boxing, but like in golf, I mean, I was surprised. But I thought it was fantastic, and she became overnight the Tiger Woods of female golf. I thought it was a great thing for PR and for attention to the LPGA Tour, and I just I thought it was a win-win, and good for them. But awesome. Okay, Anthony or Alan, do we have any final comments we want to hit before you give your?
I'm going to make mine, and then I've got one final comment to relay. I've actually had a pretty good Google Plus week. It's all told, things were pretty good. Hopefully, I set some things in motion that will pay out over the next couple of weeks and months and into 2013. And this is our first show of 2013. So it's a nice time for me to be looking forward a little bit. I wanted to share this comment from Margie, and then I'll wrap it up for the evening. Talking about how this is the show that never ends. It goes on, my friend. Some people started watching it because they didn't know what it was, and they continue watching it forever just because this text limit. Damn.
Oh, boy. That is...
hint taken, Margie.
That is taken. That is the best comment
Yeah, that's
ever.
pretty good. That's
So, Dan, do you have a good Google Plus week?
I did. I had a great, I had a lousy week personally, and I haven't talked about this publicly at all, but I'll give a brief synopsis. I was kind of out of it I post an obscene amount. I mean, like sometimes 50 times a day. Surprisingly, I have a low number of subscribers to my post. I'm just kidding. But here's the deal. My beloved, one of my best buddies, managing editor for one of my newspapers, had a heart attack. It was a horrific, and I don't know anything. I mean, I'd never had someone who worked for me or was involved in a business with me who had a heart attack. I had an uncle, a great uncle who died, but it was on New Year's Eve. In the evening, or about 3 in the afternoon, and this is a guy who was with me from the very beginning of my very first newspaper, and writes a large part of that paper. It's our flagship paper. So on New Year's Eve, I got this call. Roger had a heart attack, and his girlfriend and her daughter heard a gurgling sound in the next room. He was in his home office. So he had, I guess, just collapsed. His head was in the keyboard. So I was, of course, in a panic, like, oh, my God. I'd known this guy, 20 years. And he's a large part of our newspaper. He's a very popular, famous local writer. He's the best writer in Virginia, frankly. So anyway, I'm not breaking up. I have a cold, so my voice is gone from the show. But so I learned a lot about hearts. I learned that if you take a single heart cell and you put it in a petri dish, it will beat on its own. If you put a second cell next to it, they will, if they touch, they will beat together. I learned so many interesting, fascinating things. It was just incredible. I learned that he had a ventricle fib, which is like your heart just stops, and 97% of the people who have that die. He was the 3% who make it, because his girlfriend was there and everything worked well. And I did a full page ad in the paper, came out today, thanking the local rescue squad, the local hospital, Winchester Medical Center, and the helicopter guys. They had to fly him, but he wasn't breathing for probably 5-6 minutes, I'm guessing, no heartbeat, and it was just crazy. And I hadn't had to deal with that with someone I knew so well and worked with, daily, talking. So I was, and then of course I had to come up with a paper in 3 days, because he's the managing editor. I'm the publisher. So I had to I was calling the local realtor, the computer store guy, can you write an article? Can you write an article? And we pieced together. Somehow we did it. It was teamwork, but I just, it's how fragile life is. And, sometimes things work, and everything worked. The helicopter guys, the local first responders, everybody did an amazing job, and they literally saved this guy's life. The fact that his girlfriend was there when he collapsed made him one of the literally 2 to 3% of people who survive this. So I think and I've learned so much about how that heart thing works, and there's a million things. I mean, it's not really the show, but I just, that's what I was doing this week. If I seemed a bit distant or if I missed a message from somebody, I was basically in a panic, worried that a good friend and my best writer I've ever read or hired was dying, but he's going to make it. So I'm excited. So that was my week. But on Google Plus, I was excited to see the FTC thing, where Google, it turns out, did not violate any laws according to the Federal Trade Commission, and Microsoft is had an epic fail, in my opinion, although that's disputed by some. And we continue to see some improvements, and it's an exciting time. So, but most of all, we thank you for watching, and we thank you so much for your comments. The quality comments that we get from you folks make the show. It's as important as anything else we do. So from all of us at Google Plus Week, as we begin another year, 2013, thank you, and each of you have a wonderful Google Plus Week.